I got more.
Just going to remind them.
I have more.
Okay, folks, we're 30 seconds out. Good morning, and welcome to the June 10th Oregon Tourism Commission meeting. To everyone that has joined us here today in beautiful Enterprise, and to those joining through the Travel Oregon's Industry YouTube channel, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Today's meeting materials, including the agenda and supplemental material, can be found on the Travel Oregon Industry website if you'd like to follow along. Commissioners, I'd like to acknowledge that in holding a meeting today, we met all public meeting notice requirements provided by state law. To begin with, I'd like each commissioner to briefly introduce themselves, and we are very pleased to have Commissioner Gremmels with us remotely, so I will let Commissioner Gremmels begin with introductions.
Thank you, Chair DeNova, for that introduction. It's really a pleasure to join you. I wish I could be there in the Wallowas with you. It's one of my favorite places in Oregon, of course, next to Southern Oregon. I'm David Gremmels, Commissioner at Large, founder of Rogue Creamery and Churn. Wishing you a wonderful meeting again. I wish I was there in person, and I'm glad to be participating virtually.
Thank you, Commissioner Gremmels. Commissioner Pendleton.
Good morning. My name is David Pendleton, owner of America's Hub Tours and Oregon Tour Experts. I just want to take a moment first to say to Megan Conway, CEO of Travel Portland, and her staff, and other members of the industry that, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we lost Jay Dates, who was with the Travel Oregon team. And so my thoughts go out to her.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Rowe with Crater Lake Zipline and Kayak Adventures. I live in Klamath Falls, Oregon, so a fellow rural person. I practice that. I'm just thrilled to be here. The longer I stay, the more I want to stay. So thanks so much for welcoming us here and taking great care of us.
Commissioner Patel.
Good morning. I'm Harish Patel, owner of Hampton Inn in Pendleton and Quality Inn in Coos Bay. It's, as everybody else said, it's so nice to be here. I love this area. It was a treat on our way here. We stopped at Union to see the rodeo. To see those guys hanging on to that buck is still so jittery that I'm hanging on my seat in case things get wild here. And then we also went hiking. It's a beautiful place. Now I'm the slowest and the oldest guy in this group, and they're all warmed up with me, and they're kind, so they all treat me well. They never laugh at me as long as I'm within earshot. After that, they have fun, but thank you. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you, Commissioner Patel. Commissioner Hill.
Good morning. My name is Travis Hill. I represent the Cow Creek Tribe and Umpqua Indian Development Corporation. Reside in Roseburg, Oregon, and great to be here. Enterprise is beautiful. We've really enjoyed our hotel accommodations here. Dinner last night was fantastic, the barbecue, and so really a pleasure to be in this community and experience what it has to offer. Thank you.
Commissioner Youngblood.
Good morning, everyone. Scott Youngblood from Cascada Thermal Springs and Hotel in Portland. I could take the rest of the day telling you how much it means to be able to be here in Eastern Oregon, in Wallowa County, and the opportunity that we, the members of the commission, get to enjoy to be in community, that these occasions don't happen in an office or necessarily over a Zoom conference. There is simply nothing that can replace the opportunity for Travel Oregon staff and for members of the commission to see the work that gets done and the lives that it touches personally every day. So thank you to the Travel Oregon team. Thank you so much to our local hosts. We're so blessed to be here.
Thank you, Commissioner Youngblood. Vice Chair Willits.
Thank you. I'm Greg Willits. I built and manage Five Pine Lodge and Shibui Spa in lovely Sisters, Oregon. And I am trying to make a math equation right now in my head for a combination of cultural interests, ingenuity in business, ingenuity and some real technical skills in the kitchen around here, and then natural beauty. And Oregon has a lot of natural beauty. It has a lot of ingenuity. I feel like this area might be at the top of that math equation when I finally figure it out. And thank you for the welcome. It has been eye-opening to see everything going on in this community. And you have a lot on your plate, Elena, to manage. And appreciate everything you're doing, Jennifer, as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Willits. And our CEO, Todd Davidson.
Thank you, Lucinda. Good morning, everyone. Todd Davidson, I'm the CEO of Travel Oregon, and I would be remiss if I didn't add my thanks to both Jennifer and to Elena for your hospitality. I mean, the hospitality extended by both of you and your organizations, as well as every business person, every resident that we have crossed paths with since coming into Wallowa County, is as warm and wonderful as the natural beauty that you guys have the privilege to call home. So thank you. It's been a joy.
Thank you, Todd. And my name is Lucinda DeNovo, Director of Sales and Events at Coquel Casino Resort, owned by the Coquel Indian Tribe in North Bend, Oregon. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to remind everyone that we have the opportunity to hear comments from partners today. So if you plan on making remarks, please sign up in the back of the room if you'd like to make remarks today. I would like to wish everyone a happy Pride Month and congratulate the Travel Oregon team for supporting 18 of the 28 city-sanctioned events throughout the state and our 7 regions. Supporting Pride aligns with Travel Oregon's mission to foster an inclusive, welcoming, and vibrant tourism economy. These partnerships demonstrate a clear and intentional commitment to LGBTQ+ inclusion, not just in words, but in action. These events celebrate the diversity that makes Oregon communities unique and attractive to travelers seeking destinations where they feel safe, seen, and celebrated. My sincere thanks to the entire Travel Oregon team. I would also like to thank Dan and Autumn Zeman at Z's Barbecue at Lowstein Tavern last night. What an amazing meal and what a great story they had to share with us. We had, I have to admit, I had a few treats at the Sugar Time Bakery in addition to the lunch that we had there. So thank you to Eva Barnes. We had the opportunity to visit Timber Bronze and Garrett and Bethlo. Thank you for that incredible tour. And most importantly, thank you for your passion for your community. It really touched a number of us on the commission with the words that you shared with us. To the Litch Hotel and the Best Western Hotel, thank you for your hospitality. I have to say, we did a tour of rooms, the commissioners, because the rooms are so unique at the Litch Hotel. So thank you to them for a really great experience. And finally, Fish Trap. Thank you for allowing us to be in this beautiful facility for the last 2 days. I'm really grateful to be in such a wonderful space. Forgive me. Today marks my final meeting as chair of the Oregon Tourism Commission. I'm immensely proud of the work this commission has led to further the objectives of Travel Oregon while also remaining steadfast in the duties of accountability and transparency. In 2022, the Oregon Tourism Commission adopted the 10-year strategic vision, a guiding document for the direction of the agency through 2032. As many of you have heard me say, the 10-year strategic vision, to me, is one of the most important projects I will have the privilege of working on. We adopted the 2023-25 strategic plan and budget and look forward to doing the same for the upcoming biennium today. The commission drafted and adopted governance documents detailing the role of chair, vice chair, the finance committee, the CEO evaluation committee, and the nominating committee, a report which we will hear later today from Commissioner Hill as the next chair and vice chair are voted in. Needless to say, there are many touch points where the commission is actively engaged in overseeing the work of Travel Oregon, and I am proud of the rigor of governance that has been brought to this commission during my terms as vice chair and chair. On a personal note, I'm incredibly proud of the work done by the agency and the Tribal Tourism Work Group, which Commissioner Hill and I serve on. And this agency's understanding that you can't possibly tell the story of Oregon without first telling the stories of Oregon's tribal communities. I've appreciated the opportunities that we've had over these last 2 years to experience tribal culture, most recently yesterday with the tour of the Nez Perce Wallowa Homeland Visitor Center. We've worked hard over these last few years to increase commissioner engagement, and I want to take this opportunity to thank every commissioner here for your commitment and involvement beyond our quarterly commission meetings. And as we all know, there is always more work to do, and I'm so grateful to be doing it alongside each and every one of you. I'm excited for the future of this agency. I'm excited as we look forward to the search of our next CEO. And with that said, we have a full agenda, so let's get started. Commissioners, in holding a in-person meeting throughout the state, one important opportunity we have is to hear from our local partners welcoming us into their communities. It's my pleasure to invite Elena Carolla, Executive Director of the Eastern Oregon Visitors Association, and Jennifer Piper, Director of the Wallowa County Chamber of Commerce, to join us today. Ladies, thank you.
All right. I'm going to move this. There we go. How's everybody doing? All right. I always get a little nervous, but I'll try not to yell into the mic like I just did right now. So anyway, good morning. We are so excited to have you all here in Eastern Oregon and beautiful Wallowa County. We know that it is quite a trek for many of you, coming from Klamath Falls, Coos Bay, and everywhere in between. But we really hope you think the drive was worth it. We do. I know Wallowa County does. But I always tell people that I enjoy the drive from LeGrand to Pendleton, from LeGrand to Portland. It's about a 4-hour drive. And what I love is how the scenery is ever changing. I know that I'm in Pendleton when I go over the mountain pass, and then as I head into Boardman, the view opens. You have the Columbia River. You get in, further down, and then you start getting into Hood River, and then it starts getting lush and green, and then you're in Portland. And so that's how I really think about the drive. I always use that as an opportunity as well to just think about, just remind myself of the area, especially when I'm traveling in more of the depths of our region, which we're going to go on a little road trip here in a second. So just wanted to really thank you all, and just really appreciate y'all taking the time out. You really took a lot of my talking points already from your comments. So we'll keep this moving. I always like to open with this slide, one, just to really orient with the region and the state. And I guess I just wanted to share this. One, just as we are the regional destination management organization serving the 11 counties and 2 federally recognized tribes east of the Cascades, I always like to say too, this area is around 42,000 square miles and less than 200,000 people. So we lean heavy into partnerships, collaborations, cooperative opportunities, which I'll be touching on kind of throughout the welcome this morning. But this is really just the journey to Wallowa County is just the tip of the iceberg for the landscapes and stories that really hold this part of the state holds. And so with that, we're going to go on a little road trip. And I'm going to take you to Southeast Oregon first. So this is the southeast corner of the state, vast remote lands in Harney and Malheur County. This includes the Owyhee Canyon lands, Steens Mountains, the Alvord Desert, the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, and it's also where the Burns Paiute tribe have lived in the high desert since time immemorial. This area is beautiful, diverse communities of Burns and Ontario, Vail. You have the Mail Mural Trail, communities from Basque, Hispanic, Japanese, that all call this place home. So if you haven't made it to Southeast Oregon, I highly encourage you to. I did put a visitor guide in your little welcome bag, so if you need some little tips and inspiration, you have that. Next, we're going to head a little north to the John Day River territory. So this is aptly named for the 4 counties that follow the John Day River. In case you're wondering which they are, it's Gillum, Grant, Wheeler, and Sherman. And this is home to the Painted Hills, vast open lands. I know some communities, they lovingly call the area windmills and wheat fields. And it is just, the landscape it's breathtaking. You have great communities of Condon and Mitchell and Fossil and John Day, and just these really small, very rural, remote communities. But the passion and the people there are just immense. And so this is just, one of the other subregions. And then we're going to head over to rugged country. So this is kind of moving upstream onto the Columbia River through Morrow and Umatilla counties, where you'll find some of our region's most popular events. Some of you may have heard of the Pendleton Roundup, but also including other rodeos and different events, music festivals. There's a lot happening kind of in this area. The Rocks District AVA, which is a nested AVA within the Wallowa Valley, home to many great wineries in that area, and also a world-class cultural institute where you can immerse yourself in the history, culture, and hospitality of the Cayuse, Umatilla, and Walla Walla tribes who have lived on this land since time immemorial. So there's a lot to see and do when you're in Oregon's rugged country, and it's not that far down the 84 corridor. And so lastly, we're going to round out in Northeast Oregon, which is where you are today. So this is Baker, Union, and Wallowa counties. And so it's been really fun to have you experience, not only Wallowa County, but also Union County at the livestock show, going downtown, tasting some of our restaurants, and really experiencing what the area has to offer. So I think you've all been able to feel the landscapes and people and the personalities that call this place home. And really, this area is home to year-round recreation. So we invite you to come back in the winter, whether it's cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, snowmobiling. We have a little bit of everything in this corner of the state. So I was going to play a video, but there was some technical difficulties. But this is actually a Wallowa County video that the Chamber put together, and it's called Wallowa County Worth It. We were going to play it because the first minute really, you hear from different voices of the area, just talking about the land, what it means to them. So we will share that out. It is an 11-minute video, so you can watch the full length on your own time. But for now, we'll skip over that slide. So there's a little snapshot of what you would have seen, but we will move on to a regional update. So thank you for going on that quick little road trip with me. I always enjoy when I'm able to get out in the region, and really the sense of authenticity and grit is something that really makes up a lot of the communities in Eastern Oregon. We work with so many partners who have that, and these individuals are the heart of what makes Eastern Oregon unique and memorable. I think many of you have already said that, you felt that, and that's really just kind of the tip of the iceberg of Eastern Oregon. Everyone takes such pride of this place, and let's see here. Yeah, and then once I think people do come to this place, really always wanting to come back. And so we're excited just to really build those relationships and connections. So I want to transition a little bit just to some of the work we've been doing in collaboration with partners, in collaboration through Travel Oregon grants and other funding opportunities. So one of the things that I was really excited about, so this slide here that you see, expanding the story. So we received a Travel Oregon grant and doing a video series called Woven, Stories of Eastern Oregon. And what the story really is, it's to broaden the narrative. I think a lot of people know Eastern Oregon for our landscapes, but not necessarily for our people or the communities. And so this was a big push to help kind of share more stories about the people who live here. And one of the ways that we are doing that is through 6 short videos. So this is a screenshot from the Nez Perce Wallowa homeland. So next month, they'll be doing their Tom Colic's Powwow and Friendship Feast, which is a wonderful event if you have not been. So we'll be that'll be going live. You'll be seeing that very soon as that event comes closer. The other stories that we were highlighting is America's Global Village that happens every year in Ontario, the Burns Paiute tribe and their powwow and the significance of that date in October. Also, the Crow Shadow Institute of the Arts, which is owned and operated by the Confederated Tribes of Umatilla Indian Reservation. We'll also be highlighting Kamwa Chung, and then Milton Freewater's Latino Heritage. They do a big event next month at the end of July called the Freewater Fiesta. So these stories are really captured in 3-minute shorts, but also we have 30 and 15-second cut downs with complementary content on visiteasternoregon.com. So again, this is just kind of a tip of the iceberg. As we were doing this, there's obviously so many more stories to tell, but we're, having conversations of, is this a, episode 1 type of thing? So I'm really excited for you all to check those out in their entirety. Another area that just wanting to really highlight, which is a big part of our communities across the region, is through local foods. This is one of the best opportunities to increase visitor spending in the region, as every visitor needs to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. To this end, another major focus of our work this year is taking a deep dive into the local grown and produce foods of our region. Last fall, we brought on Addie Rang through the Rare AmeriCorps program to lead this work, and Addie has spearheaded an extensive outreach across our 11 counties to culinary and agritourism partners, understanding their needs and what projects they have in the works. This work is culminating in a local food inventory, which we'll be finalizing at the end of this month. And one of our goals with this robust inventory is to have a better inventory of local product to connect visitors and the travel industry to all the great produce, beer, and barbecue of Eastern Oregon. And then with this, we also hope this work will also have a marketing component, really telling the food stories of Eastern Oregon, to build that stronger awareness and connection to the storytelling around the food, the people, and the places of Eastern Oregon. And yeah, we also just wanted to note, I think I've mentioned this before, but the Rare AmeriCorps program has been instrumental to our organization over the last 5 years, and so we are sad to see that program kind of go away in its current form, but we are in close communications and, again, partnerships run deep in Oregon. So the next component I just wanted to touch on is increasing access. So this one's really been many years in the making. So let's see here. So most recently, Travel Oregon grants have really helped accelerate accessibility across Eastern Oregon. With support from a Travel Oregon grant this past year, Katie Boucher, our Destination Stewardship Coordinator, worked really closely with the communities of Wallowa County, Baker, and Union, as well as partners in Umatilla and Morrow counties, to conduct local workshops in the area to assess, to increase the awareness and opportunities for welcoming visitors with disabilities. These workshops were followed by on-site accessibility assessments, which were really meant to help businesses see what they've already been doing well in areas to improve. So this image here was actually, it's in Echo. And so this was actually doing a site assessment with Gina, correct? Yes, thank you. The owner. And so it's just been really exciting to have that in-person opportunity. Several of our partners in Northeast Oregon have also received a competitive grant to support other accessibility work, including the Joseph Branch Trail, to create a pocket park and a 1.08 mile trail section in Wallowa. And the first 2 sections of this are really envisioned a 63 mile rail to trail area that is ADA compliant. So this is just a few examples of, kind of leveraging not only resources, but capacity, really leaning on our local partners. And one of the areas I just wanted to touch on this too is a lot of this work started many years ago with a pilot project around the Hells Canyon Scenic Byway. Then that kind of morphed into this opportunity through grant funding. And then it's also teed up nicely working with communities with Wheel the World and other things. So it's really been this building over the past couple of years that I think will position us well as we increase work in this area. How am I doing on time? Let's see. I can talk faster, we know that. Okay, the last couple of things before I hand it over to Jennifer, but another area that we've really been leaning in on is around the Hells Canyon Scenic Byway. So I don't know if you noticed, there was a few signs along the way. You may have overlooked them. That's also okay. That's one of the reasons why we're doing some of this work. But this next project around the byway is, it's multi-level, but the byway is a driving route that unites Baker, Wallowa, and Union union counties in Northeast Oregon. And whether they know it or not, almost every visitor to this area is on the Byway at some point. And so this makes it a natural area for collaborative investments among our regional partners. And it really kicked off with doing kind of this assessment work, showing the way. So for the past 4 years, we've worked with the Tri-County partners, in many cases led by Jennifer Piper's initiative at the Wallowa County Chamber, but have participated in projects and programs to increase stewardship of the Byway. And then in 2021, the Wallowa County Chamber participated in the Destination Ready program, which looked at opportunities to manage visitors for protection of the lands and trails. So that's the kind of bottom right image. And some of you have that brochure in your bag. So take a look at that. That brochure has been a really great fulfillment piece for the region. I know it's been obviously very popular at the Chamber, but when I go to consumer shows or different things, it just shows a really comprehensive view of the Tri-County area specific to outdoor recreation. Out of this planning work, the group also produced a recreation map, which I just mentioned, but one of the other things that we're really proud of kind of this building work is that we are in the current process of working with a contractor that is a collaborative regional investment to look at doing a brand refresh to the Byway. One of the things we've really heard over my 6 years with EOVA is that people know about the Byway, but like they don't really know or like where they are. And so this is really looking at making the Byway more approachable and kind of bite-sized pieces. So there will be a section kind of like when you're in La Grande, because that's a gateway into the Byway, and then as you kind of move along the Byway itself and going around ending in Baker County. So we'll be wrapping that work at the end of this month, and so that will then kind of give us a roadmap to update some of the signage, do some other updates with the branding and things like that. So to make the Byway a more an even better known destination, and then really how to navigate, and again, connecting people not only to the place, but to the people of this place. Okay, and I've touched on this a lot, but just to want to close out with a couple of things that has been really helpful as the RDMO is we have with the 10% allocation, we do a regional grant program. We just concluded our 4th program this January. We awarded 7 recipients, but over the past 4 years, this having the grant program has been a really great touch point for us to really see what else is happening around the region. We are a limited team. We can only get out in region so much, but the grant program has been a great way to see what other partners are doing, other areas for collaboration. And so we just wanted to really touch on that because the grant program has been such an important catalyst to destination marketing and development work around the whole region. I have just a couple of spotlights I wanted to include. So the images here are both Wallowa County recipients. We have, over the last 4 cycles, have awarded across the whole region, which has been exciting. But the top image there is from the Greater Hells Canyon Council and the work that they do with the Blue Mountain Trails. And this particular, so this was a pilot project that they did. So they said support from EOVA helped us launch a successful pilot of our guided hikes and outings program on the Blue Mountains Trail. We engaged volunteers in 9 stewardship events in a model that connected recreation with stewardship. And this particular outing was called Build It Like a Beaver work day at Tom Calix, the Nez Perce Homelands Project property. And this site is publicly accessible, and we'll have an interpretive sign for people to see the importance of beavers and their habitat on the landscape. So that was just a really fun project that came out of that work. And then another one was with the Oregon Nordic Club to purchase some equipment that enabled them to do more grooming across the whole county. And they said that the various trail systems throughout Wallowa County, including Ferguson Ridge and Salt Creek Summit. This continues to enable the ski club to groom these various trails across Wallowa County throughout the winter. Getting this trailer has made grooming winter trails a true reality for the club, and they plan to continue to expand their grooming operation. So with winter recreation being such a growth opportunity for us and really diversifying our shoulder season, that was a really exciting project. So with that, I'm going to pause and turn it over to Jennifer just to hear from her so she can talk about directly what's happening in Wallowa County.
Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners, and Todd. Again, Jennifer Piper, Executive Director of the Wallowa County Chamber of Commerce, and I just want to say welcome to my home community, Wallowa County. I love it here. I think you do too, and it's been great spending some time with you here the last couple of days. This is a beautiful place. And this photo that you're seeing here, this is actually a picture of my husband from a gorgeous day that we enjoyed on Wallowa Lake just a couple of weekends ago. This is one of the things that we love to do here. Really good example of the days that we just absolutely live here for in Wallowa County. But as beautiful as this place is, Wallowa County is not all sunshine and lake days. And like many rural communities, Wallowa County is grappling with some serious challenges right now. These are not unique to Wallowa County, but I think that rural communities' difficulty can sometimes be really amplified here. Housing affordability continues to make hiring and retaining employees an obstacle for our local businesses. And right now, our nonprofits and local agencies are struggling due to executive orders from the current administration. And I just really wanted to call out an example as we are gathered here today at Fish Trap. This is the event space for our local literary arts organization, a treasured organization in Wallowa County that offers year-round programming for local residents and visitors alike. And this organization is an example of one that has lost 25% of its funding due to the current situation at hand. And you know, despite this, we all keep showing up and finding ways to serve both our communities and our visitors. And I think you have seen that in some of the spaces that you visited and the conversations that you've had with people here. And Wallowa County has never been an easy place, and we're really embracing that as a feature, not a bug. We know this place is tough. It's remote, it's rugged, it's not easy to get here. One of my favorite things is to have conversations with people that say, oh yes, Wallowa County, I think I've driven through there on our way to wherever it may be. No, you haven't. And in some ways, that's kind of the whole point, and we're really embracing that message as a message of authenticity. And that's kind of the story behind our brand campaign, Wallowa County, worth it. Our tagline, worth it, really speaks in just 2 words to why we, the residents of Wallowa County, choose to be here. And I think that it also speaks to the type of traveler who values intention and connection to place. And while we were going to share a snippet of that video, I do again just want to encourage you to check out that video we created. It's called Wallowa County, Worth It. 11.5-minute video. You can find it on our homepage, wallowacountychamber.com. And it really captures what we say when we say Wallowa County is worth the work, worth the journey, and worth your time. And you get to hear that message directly from the people who call this place home. And that spirit of showing up and driving forward, whatever it is that needs to be done here, is really the sentiment that is motivating the latest efforts here at the Wallowa County Chamber of Commerce. Just about 10 months ago, the Wallowa County Chamber stepped into a new leadership role by taking on management of our Wallowa County Rural Regional Main Street program. This is a program that brings together 3 of our towns, Wallowa, Enterprise, and Joseph, in a coordinated community-first approach to downtown revitalization. And this work is really rooted in the same mindset that I've already been speaking to, that we always persevere. And we also know that tourism doesn't happen over here in a vacuum. It's really shaped by the quality of our public spaces, the overall vibrancy of our downtowns, and the pride of place that our community feels for Wallowa County. So through this program, we are pursuing projects like revitalizing buildings and streetscapes right here in downtown Enterprise, enhancing community and cultural spaces in Wallowa, and upgrading creative and commercial spaces in Joseph. You just heard the sentiment that a little bit can go a long way in rural Oregon. A little bit more can go even farther. I am thrilled to share for the first time publicly today that the Wallowa County Chamber has been awarded over $1.1 million in funds through the Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant Program. This funding will support 14 projects. Thank you. This funding will support 14 projects across Wallowa, Enterprise, and Joseph, strengthening our communities, preserving our history, and enhancing the visitor experience. I'm going to hand it back to Elena to close us out, but I just want to say again, Wallowa County may not be the easiest place, but I believe the best places are not easy, and that is why they are worth it.
You could have closed us out. That was great. And I got goosebumps. It's so exciting. And I think one of the things, too, where I was really excited for Jennifer to share this is because our main streets are such a core part of the visitor experience. And I think what the rural Main Street model is about, it's looking at these small communities coming together in a unique way. One thing Jennifer did not mention is that she actually participated in the National Main Street Conference speaking about this model with Sherry Stewart, the Oregon Main Street State Coordinator, and then Cyrus Siddiqui, who helped with some of that programming as well. The Oregon Frontier Chamber of Commerce also has a similar model. They serve in a 3-county area. And so it's just a way to build, by being a part of the Main Street community, it gives access to additional grant opportunities, other technical assistance, different things. And so I think when we really look at the region as a whole and opportunities, we like to get creative and think out of the box and see how can we best leverage and partner and get things done, because it is worth it, whether you're in Wallowa County or Burns or somewhere in between. So with that, I just really want to thank you all again. Thank you, Commissioner Youngblood, for loving this place as much as we do, and I hope you all do as well. And it's very sentimental as well. I shared earlier, this is your last commission meeting. Wallowa County in 2019 was my first commission meeting. So it's been exciting just to be kind of along this journey with you all. And yeah, I said, time flies when you're having fun. And we really enjoy the work that we do. And we really do believe that Eastern Oregon is a critical piece of Oregon's future in the visitor economy, and hope that you were inspired to see ways that we have partnered with Travel Oregon and our local partners to deliver high quality and memorable experiences to this part of the state. So thank you again for your time. And all right, on with the show. That's Pendleton. But.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you both. Jennifer, you had said you had a surprise. You weren't going to tell me what it was. 1.1 million, that's a pretty impressive surprise. So congratulations to you. I also appreciate your transparency with talking about the difficult things, which are cuts that are happening as a result of decisions made at the federal level. We know we're experiencing that just in this room with our RARE program. And so what I appreciate about this state, what I appreciate about this agency and the people in it is that we're resilient. We have tenacity. And to use your words, it's so worth it, right? So thank you very much. I appreciate all of your efforts. And I imagine commissioners have comments or questions. Commissioner Pendleton?
Sure, I'll start it off. No, thank you to both of you. I will share this with you. I haven't said much, but I actually come over here and spend a lot of time. I do believe this is like a paradise to me, and I love it. So it's always been hard to share it with a lot of friends. But, in addition to that, past years, we brought many people over here and businesses and members of the community that has helped us over the years. It's just been amazing. I think the hardest part for me, Jennifer, is when I first arrived, and I think on Sunday, I sat there on the bench, and I'm looking at the road and there's no traffic, and I'm going, I've come over here so many times. So I understand what that impact is, and I think I've said this to a few commissioners, that this is strange. Something, it's just not right. And as I started thinking about it more and more about the environment and everything that's happening, and the nature and the targeted group of travelers that do come through here, it just broke my heart in many ways. But there's one thing I really noticed, and I'm glad you touched on the community piece, because I've seen it in the Dalles, the Maupin, the John Day here. The community comes together to help and support as much as possible the local businesses. And it's so refreshing to see, like yourself, the owner of the Commons and others who have left and come back, and it brings something back to the community to help to uplift it. So I appreciate what you've done and what others here are doing in the community. The 1.1 million is great, but I don't think it's enough. I think it's a good message, but I think there's more that needs to be done, because this is truly, it's an amazing part of Oregon. And Elaine, I want to say thank you as well, because you know I'm an adventurer. I get out and see the state. You sent me some additional information to get out and explore more and learn more about the area over towards La Grande area, because this is normally where I come to. Baker I've been to, great. I love that. The Rock District, once a year in December normally, when it's really slow, my wife and I make a trip over there, and we spend a lot of time visiting the wineries and over in that area. So we have so much, and we're very fortunate but at the same time, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, because it's critical we get help. And the community is great, but we need to do more to help and get some of the business back to help support these communities. There's so much here. So thank you for the time you've taken today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vice Chair Willits.
Thank you. Jennifer, you gave me 3 new classifications for my math equation.
Amazing. My husband will be excited to hear this.
Energy, momentum, leadership, and spark plug. I mean, you have fuel around you. You need the spark plug to get these things off the ground, and you have turned this place into an amazing place, and I'm excited to return and see what has been done in the next couple years here. Thank you so much for that energy. And then Elena, I have that handball in my truck, and I'll be going through Jordan Valley, and I challenge you to a pelote handball competition and the bass courts in the middle of Jordan Valley. So. Yeah, thank you for managing a huge region with the same energy for every region, every small town. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Any other comments, commissioners? Okay, with that said, ladies, thank you so much. Really appreciate all the wonderful news coming from this region. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is partners and public statements. On Thursday, May 22nd, the commission meeting notice was posted to the commission meeting webpage. Notice was sent through the industry communications, and a link to the meeting agendas were posted. Today's opportunity to hear from our partners is really an invitation to our partners to provide us with information, updates, and constructive thoughts regarding Oregon's travel and tourism industry. I'd like to remind everyone that a comment form lives live continually on our industry meeting page should you like the opportunity to provide us with your thoughts and insights. We did receive a comment in advance from David DeRizo of Community Television of Lane County, sharing their new film festival in Eugene in 2026. David's comments have been shared with the Travel Oregon's leadership, so staff can reach out with more information. With today's meeting held in person, we have the opportunity for attendees to sign up in person and speak with us. We request that the remarks remain respectful and professional, and we ask that you limit your comments to the 3-minute time period. And do we have any comments? Oh, right in front of me. Wonderful. One of my favorite people, Bob Hackett from Travel Southern Oregon. Please join us.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Bob Hackett. I'm the Executive Director of Travel Southern Oregon. 2 quick comments. One, Commissioner DeNovo, congratulations on a run. Well done. And I think a model of intelligence and leading with heart is been established. So well done. I am Executive Director of an RDMO, and as you heard from Elena, it's one of the closest professional relationships. I'm speaking for myself, but I think for all of them, the circle of RDMO leaders and groups, we're a very close group. And so while you may not have noticed in your packet the absence of a Travel Southern Oregon support letter for perhaps considering raising the funding level for RDMOs, I'm keenly aware of it because I need to go publicly on the record for Elena and Lizzie in the Mount Hood Gorge, because you could see from the breadth of work that Elena shared with you over the geography that she shared with you to realize the 10-year strategic vision that we're working with together. And it just requires a base level of sustained professional attention to accomplish this and have the capacity to execute mutually. So I just want to go clearly on the record for, just for the commission and Travel Oregon leadership staff that I'm just a voice of support for continuing to raise that when pro rata doesn't quite get there for what needs to be done. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. The next person to speak is another one of my favorite people. Where's Tori? Oh, there you are. Tori, please join us.
Hi, thank you, Chair Novo, Todd, the Commission. Congratulations on your tenure as president. You've been a beacon of watching women in leadership, so it's been great to see that. I, like Bob, wanted to have the public record support of Eastern Oregon and the Mount Hood and the Columbia River Gorge as our funding floor regions. I unfortunately missed the written deadline for the 25 to 27 strategic plan public comment, so while I was here, I wanted to take advantage of the mic for just a minute to support, I think it's actually 2 very specific asks of a transparent process of how these 2 regions can ask to have the floor raised, because I think as we develop and improve these RCTP guidelines, I think that's something that could be added to the guidelines as a very clear way to improve. And then second, they haven't asked to specifically increase their floor at the moment, both regions. I believe they submitted budgets at 2 different budget amounts to show the difference of work that they could provide. And so I would like to express my support as we look through our lens of equity in this 10-year strategic plan of how we allocate resources and allow these 2 regions to be competitive with the rest of the 5 other regions who have budgets that are typically almost more than double what they're able to work from. So that's what I'm here to share today, that we also support those 2 asks from our 2 funding floor regions. So thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Appreciate your remarks. Okay, if there are no other comments, we will move to commission business. Commissioners, I'd like to confirm that everyone received and has had a chance to review their commission packet, including the financials. Okay, great. I'd like to thank Vice Chair Willits for reviewing the financials with Todd, Kathleen, Eddie, and me prior to this meeting, as we do on a monthly basis. We had a healthy conversation regarding the state of the industry and how Travel Oregon is responding. Vice Chair Willits, will you provide us with a summary of the financial update?
Yes, thank you, Chair DeNovo. We met and reviewed financials, which do include the May TLT deposit. With the May deposit, we've received $37.7 million in TLT revenue, which represents 85.4% of budgeted $44.1 million. Fiscal year to date, TLT is down 0.2% compared to fiscal year 24. This is behind pace of our budgeted for 44.1 million. All the departments at Travel Oregon have been preparing for this reduction in TLT revenue, now forecasted to be $42 million, with the budgeted amendment to be presented today. We continue to closely monitor TLT as the fiscal year closes, noting that we will have final TLT at the end of July when the Department of Revenue posts the end of fiscal year results.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of Vice Chair Willits? Okay, we will now move on to commission action. Commissioners were sent the draft April and May 2025 commission meeting minutes via email on May 29th. Are there any questions in regards to those documents? If there are no questions, I will take a motion for approval.
So move.
Second? Okay, we have a motion to approve the April and May 2025 commission meetings and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the nominating committee. As I stated earlier, the June meeting marks the end of my term as chair. A nominating committee is appointed annually to deliberate and propose a slate of officers to serve as the next chair and vice chair. I had asked Commissioners Hill and Gremmels to serve on that nominating committee in interviewing all commissioners for their interest and recommendations and leadership roles as chair as vice chair. Commissioner Hill is going to give us the report, and then Commissioner Gremmels, you just jump in whenever you'd like, but I will turn this over to Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Commissioner DeNova. In early May, Commissioner Gremmels and I met with each other and the other commissioners to review roles of the nominating committee, the roles to be appointed, capture members' interest, and share the recommendations for these leadership opportunities. I'm pleased to share that we are nominating Greg Willits as chair and Harish Patel as vice chair. Greg brings a steady leadership with deep understanding of community and rural tourism, while Harish offers decades of executive leadership across the hospitality sector with his experience in national industry boards. We're confident this pairing will provide balanced leadership and will continue advancing the important work of this commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Gremmels, anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to thank the commissioners for their time, allowing Travis and I an opportunity to get to know them and understand their leadership and commitment to Travel Oregon. And I'm grateful for your leadership, Lucinda, and the rich tapestry of experience that you've brought to this board in bringing further level of communication and transparency and a commitment to onboarding new commissioners as we move forward. And that was a communication shared across the board. And so I want you to know that the commissioners truly appreciate your commitment as chair and your leadership over these last 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gremmels. I appreciate your kind words. Well, if there are no questions, I will ask those who are being nominated to recuse themselves from the vote. But if there are no questions, I will take a motion for approval of the chair and vice chair for the 2026 fiscal year. Great. We have a motion. A second? Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of chair to be Greg Willits and vice chair to be Harish Patel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations to you both. The next item on the agenda is consideration of CEO retention and succession planning. As we recently announced and had been discussed with the Commission since June of 2024, our CEO, Todd Davidson, has announced his retirement after 30 plus years in the Oregon tourism industry. The Commission has asked Todd to stay on as CEO to ensure a smooth handoff to the next CEO. We appreciate your willingness, Todd, to support continuity in this transition. In the coming months, we anticipate that you will be taking steps to prepare the agency for the CEO handoff, including preparing archives, as well as overseeing the initial execution of the 2025-27 strategic plan and budget. I will ask Vice Chair to detail the motion.
Thank you. I move that the commission acknowledge and accept Todd Davidson's notice to retire as Chief Executive Officer of the Oregon Tourism Commission, to retain Mr. Davidson as CEO until his replacement has been secured and onboarded to the satisfaction of the commission, and 3, approve the offer letter dated June 10th, 2025 until his retirement date.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Just one comment.
Actually, if I can do a second, and then we'll do discussion.
Okay.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Pendleton?
Yes. Unfortunately, I wasn't there in February, I believe, when we were reviewing the offer letter. But I support many things that the commission agreed upon. I believe that offer letter goes into effect as of July 1st. I feel that we need to further discuss or define the scope of work prior to the effective date of July 1st.
Okay, any further comment in regards to that?
I think I agree with David on that part, that we need to discuss that further.
So we have a motion and a second. So let's finish that through before we decide what the next course of action is. We have a motion and a second to acknowledge and accept Todd Davidson's notice to retire as Chief Executive Officer of the Oregon Tourism Commission, to retain him as CEO until his replacement has been secured and onboarded to the satisfaction of the commission, and to approve the offer letter dated June 10th, 2025 until his retirement date. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. With that said, this motion affirms the Commission's intent to accept Mr. Davidson's decision while ensuring stable leadership during the search for a new CEO. It authorizes his continued service through the transition and affirms the Commission's approval of the prepared offer letter. I would like to acknowledge Commissioner Pendleton's comment. While we have approved this, I think there is an opportunity for this commission going forward under Vice Chair Willett's soon new chair leadership to continue that conversation. So I would encourage us to do that going forward. Correct.
You're still in leadership. Then I have to discuss it.
Well, we can discuss it before then. I'm just thinking it'll take another commission meeting in which to discuss it. So yes, and then it's all yours. Right. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So before we move on discussing the Commission's work to recruit the next CEO, I would like to take this moment to congratulate Todd on 30 years of service to this industry. We look forward to celebrating you more as we continue along this process, but thank you so much for your leadership, the impact you've made on this industry. There aren't enough words, Todd, but we thank you for your service, truly. Commissioner Pendleton?
And I want to say as well, Todd, I've had the pleasure of working with you and your team for many years, okay? And so I'm very pleased with many things that has been accomplished over the years. I said this to you a couple weeks ago when you and I were talking about that, retirement piece, and I said, how do you measure success? Think about the people that you work with, and other members within the industry that you've uplifted and elevated and activated and created opportunities for them. But what I really want to share, there's another piece of Todd that I've grown to respect in many ways. We were on a trip to Japan. I think you recall this. To Jeddah to do some work, and Todd reached out to, I believe, Greg Eckhart and myself and said, let's go for a drive or whatever. I really didn't know where we were going at first or what we were doing, but we ended up at a cemetery at a friend of Todd's and a friend of the industry. And it just, just observing, work is one thing, but when you build relationships and the friendships that you developed, Todd has truly created some extended families throughout this industry. And that trip to Japan really defined the type of person that I see in Todd. And so Todd, I'm not one for holding back, and I'll share my opinion and thoughts on things. But at the same time, I recognize the work you've done over the years and the value that you brought to this industry. And I still think there's a huge role, too, that we need to discuss. And that's why I touched on that earlier. But I just want to say thank you. And that trip to Japan actually brought a tear to my eye. And I know I watched you and Greg Eckhart. It really tells the story of the work that you've done over the years to really bring that international business to us. And so as we sit here today, and as I said earlier, and I looked down the street, and I'm saying, where's that German market? Where's the Canadian market? We've got a lot of work to do to get those visitors back to support these communities. So thank you for the work you've done, and I just challenge the commission as a whole that we continue that work as we move forward. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment too.
Sure.
Thanks, Todd. I don't know Todd. I don't know for how many years. I know even before we met Kulangaski and sat in that meeting. But again, I just want to thank you. I don't want to go on and on about it, but thank you. You've done a great job so far, and I'm glad you're not leaving. You're with us for a while.
Thanks, Harish.
One of the things I appreciate most about this commission is that open line of communication that Commissioner Grummel spoke to, and the fact that we don't always have to agree with one another. I think that is great for the public process. As a city councilor who has been a councilor for over 9 years, that's part of the process, and I think it's what makes us better. So I hear you, Commissioner Pendleton, and soon to be Vice Chair Patel, and I think this commission would be happy to have that conversation as we move forward, so appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is the CEO Search Committee. As stated in ORS 284.142, parenthesis 1, the Oregon Tourism Commission shall appoint an executive director. The appointment shall be subject to the approval of the governor. The executive director shall serve at the pleasure of the members of the commission. With that said, I am appointing a CEO search committee to lead the work recruiting our next CEO. I have asked Commissioners Patel, Pendleton, and Vice Chair Willits to join me in this committee. We understand that our partners will be interested in this process, and we are committed to transparency throughout this search. As this committee begins our work, our priorities that we will undertake are a market rate compensation analysis, finalize the CEO job description, and identify an executive search firm. And we look forward to sharing more as our work continues. Thank you very much. And thank you to Vice Chair Willits and the commissioners for agreeing to serve on this incredibly important committee. Let me be clear, this commission as a entire body will be involved in the process. This is just a committee who will begin doing that work and bringing more forth to the entire commission. The final item under commission action today is the final review and adoption of the Travel Oregon 2025-27 strategic plan and budget. Per ORS 284.114, Travel Oregon prepares a biennial strategic plan that is to be shared with the governor, Business Oregon, and tourism industry associations, Oregon Destination Association, and the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. The plan was also shared with 11 leaders of the Legislative Assembly, 39 industry and agency partners, 7 regional destination management organizations, 9 federally recognized tribes, and the larger state tourism industry. Public comment was available from April 16th to May 16th and featured a public hearing on May 7th. I'd like to hand this off to Todd to review the comments received and share the plan and budget with us today. Todd?
You know, I'm grateful for the long prelude that you gave me because Commissioner Pendleton, you did me in with remembering that story. You also got to Greg Eckhart. He's not here at this meeting, but he's texted me while you were presenting, so I know he's watching online, and he was like, dang it, I wasn't going to cry. But congratulations, you got both he and I to cry. He's referring to, by the way, for those that had the chance to know and love Tomoko Hori, who was our tourism manager in Japan for over 25 years. And a dear, dear friend in cancer took her from us far too soon. My wife has commented on more than one occasion that she knows I have folks all over the world that I care deeply about that she may, oh gosh, dang it, that she may never meet. But she was blessed to get to know Tomoko, as were our boys. And because Tomoko made many trips to Oregon, so she was sure to know the people and know the places and know the stories. And one of those trips, a couple of those trips included dinners at our home and a chance for her to meet Carolyn. So Carolyn and the boys could love her just as much as I did. And so thank you, David, for the memory, and shame on you for making me cry in a public meeting. So let's talk about the future. Let's, with a little bit of talking about the past. First of all, as Chair DeNovo mentioned, through the exhaustive process that we went through in soliciting comments, there were 8 written comments that were received by the May 16th deadline. There were 3 public comments that were shared with the Commission during the May 7th public hearing. Those comments were all distributed to the Commission. They were discussed internally by the staff team to review if there were any edits to the plan or the budget that should be brought forward and recommended at this time. All of the comments that were received were also shared on the Travel Oregon industry website. So they are part of the ongoing public record. One comment that was received was from an individual encouraging us on the importance of heritage tourism in Oregon and to ensure that concepts of heritage tourism were incorporated into surveys that we undertake as Travel Oregon, as well as the KPIs that we use to track our progress. After review of that public comment, the staff had determined that future research will include those heritage concepts and KPIs, and we'll continue to keep that in mind as we progress. However, we do not recommend that there was a need to change any of the narrative in the plan as was presented to you. So the plan that was presented to you at the governor's conference for 25-27, that narrative is the same. There are however, some modifications to the budget, and I will touch on the source of some of those changes at this time, if I may. First of all, as you know from our February meeting and our conversations at the Governor's Conference in April, we work with a firm named Tourism Economics to help us in projecting our revenue forecast. This has been modified. We did one final review with them last month, and you will note if in looking at FY 2025, the highlighted section there for their baseline, in February, that was $42.5 million. They have reevaluated that and are now recommending that we will, or projecting rather, that we will end this year at $42 million. There is still one additional check to come in. You heard the financial report from Vice Chair Willits. We believe that $42 million is still attainable and reasonable. It does reflect a modification from what you saw earlier, the $42.5 million, and that will be part of the action that you will take here in the future. The other change that is made, and I'll draw your attention to the second line of highlighted numbers, is the modification to the forecast for this upcoming biennium, FY 25-26, which shows up here as 26-27. In February, the forecast for FY26 was 3.3 million, and for FY27 was 3.2 million. Those have now been modified to 1.8 million in FY26 and 3.9 million in FY27. So Tourism Economics does believe that there will be greater growth anticipated in the second year of the biennium than previously forecasted. However, they are forecasting slower growth in the first year of the biennium than originally projected. In discussing this revised forecast with the Tourism Commission members that are members of the Finance Committee that were able to attend our last meeting, we reviewed the 1.8 and 3.9%. And at the recommendation of the commission members who are members of the Finance Committee, we have modified the budget for 25-27 to reflect 1.8% growth in year one, however, only 3.2% growth in year two, which was the original forecast from Tourism Economics back in February. So not 1.8 and 3.9, but rather 1.8 and 3.2 at the recommendation of the commission members that serve on the Finance Committee. This is how it all lays out in terms of revenue forecast. The current budget originally adopted was 40.4 million, 44.14 million for the 23-25 biennium for a total of $84.5 million roughly. The proposed modification, as you just heard, modifying year two to 42 million, and we're able to show actual for the first year of the biennium will be $83.36 million. And the proposal for the 25-27 biennium is roughly 1.8% growth. You'll see slight modifications, by the way, in the numbers in the margins. Those are rounding issues. It shows as 1.9 rather than 1.8. It shows as 3.0 rather than 3.2. Those are rounding errors that would be roughly anywhere from $10,000 to $60,000 in a $44 million budget, as we depict the budgets here. So in year one, it'd be 42.8 million. In year two, it would be 44.1 million. Total transient lodging tax forecast for the 25-27 biennium is 86.9 million. So, again, this is just a recap of what I had just shown you in terms of what the current budget was, 84.5. The proposed budget with that 42 million rather than 42.5, let alone the original 44.1 that was forecasted, would be 83.36. Oops, sorry. On the donut chart, this is what how that lays out. This is what you would see in the back of the current 23-25 strategic plan. This budget is now modified to show the actions taken by the department heads to modify budgets as we were tracking the revenue growth during this current biennium. It also modifies the transient lodging tax budget to 83.36 million. Because we are at the end of the biennium, we are able to give the commission an idea of how those dollars were expended against the objectives that are contained in the 10-year strategic vision. So here you see how $33.6 million of those dollars that were invested during this recent biennium were able to be tethered, I will say, directly to one of the four primary objectives that are contained within the 10-year strategic vision. We also always show the commission what the budget looks like using state budget classification codes. This is a piece of the statute and something that is requested by the Legislative Fiscal Office. So these are those same budget numbers, but it's using state budget classification codes. By the way, for those in the audience, all this information was provided to the commission in advance, so they had the opportunity to review. So the proposed budget for 25-27, based on those revised revenue forecasts, again, 1.8% growth in year one, 3.2% growth in year two. Total transient lodging tax revenue, 86.9 million. There is transient lodging tax that came in the form of an accrual in FY24 that is being used in this upcoming biennium. There's other income, which is in the form of everything from interest income, revenue from the Welcome Center brochure program, revenue from the Oregon Governor's Conference, et cetera, that is part of other income. And we are also proposing a transfer from our operating reserve of $480,000. It will leave us with a balance of roughly $1.75 million in the operating reserve. We think that's reasonable. I say we because I did vet this with my executive team at Travel Oregon, but I will also make it I believe this is reasonable because I think there's a point of personal accountability here as well. I do think it's important for some of the requests that have come in that we consider transferring dollars from the operating reserve. We've done this 2 other times in our history. Once was during the Great Recession of 2008-9. The other time was during COVID. We've never fully tapped the operating reserve, but we've tapped part of that operating reserve when the need was determined, when a recommendation was brought forward by the staff, and there was concurrence from the commission. And we are, for this next biennium, recommending a $480,000 transfer from the operating reserve, so a total budget of $90.5 million roughly. Then below, using either the numbers below or the donut chart on the left, you see how those dollars are then broken out and allocated, including our statutory obligations for the dollars going towards the grant program and towards the RCTP program. Again, showing those budget numbers using the Legislative Fiscal Office and the state budget classification codes so that we're able to report to them that you have been able to see and review the budgets in that format as well. Also want to touch on, because this is part of the 25-27 biennial budget, what we are projecting for the Wine Country License Plate Program. It's roughly $850,000 for the biennium, $425,000 a year, and those dollars are shared 50-50 between a matching grant program and a tourism promotion distribution. So this is, again, our budget is projecting $850,000. We track this budget separately from the transient lodging tax budget. So, in light of some of the other comments that we heard during the public hearing that we held on May 7th, there are some additional changes that are made to the budget that I want to make sure that you're aware of as you contemplate and deliberate this budget and this plan for the next biennium. First of all, regarding the RDMO floor and the review, we heard you. We heard you loud and clear. And I mean, not only are you seen, but you're felt. The budget, the revenue forecast revision, going from 3.3 to 1.8, tightens some of that consideration. But again, you also saw the willingness and the desire to pull some dollars from the operating reserve so that we can consider other requests and other programs as well. So our recommendation and my recommendation, coming from myself as well as from the exec team, is that the floor for the RDMOs be increased from $400,000 a year to $500,000 a year, and that we undertake a review of how that formula is calculated, and that we would undertake that during this next biennium. And again, the commission can consider further revisions as the biennium progresses, as revenues recover. There can be additional considerations that are made at that time, but we believe that for the adoption of this budget, our recommendation is that that floor does need to be increased, and we increase it incrementally from $400,000 to $500,000 here initially, and undertake a review for how we continue to modify and revisit that floor in the future. Secondly, there was also a request that came from the Port of Portland regarding the large grant program. And this is a budget consideration. It is a biennial strategic plan consideration in view of the fact that we are preparing to open, and we have an annual grant program. And the large grant program has historically only been open, and the way the guidelines are currently written, may only be opened at the request of the commission. And the commission determines how much money should go into that large grant program. There are guidelines that currently govern the large grant program that we believe deserve being reviewed by the commission and by our stewardship investment team. And I would strongly encourage that step, and we have time to do it before the grant program is formally open. But our recommendation, and the information that was shared with you in advance lays this out. Our recommendation to you is that you do indeed open the large grant program, that you put $2.5 million into the large grant program for FY26, that you set a floor for those grants at $500,000 or more, and that a work group of this commission work with the stewardship investment team to consider what those guidelines would be for the large grant program, and that those could be brought back to the commission for their consideration in the future. So with that, I will conclude my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions or entertain any comments that you may have.
Start, I guess. No, Todd, thank you for the report. Very well detailed. No surprises. I am very pleased with the modifications that we made based off where we're at right now. I thought it was in response to a few here and others, raising the floor made good sense to me, and we'll continue to monitor that as well and be ready to adjust, adapt as needed. And as far as the large grants, no question about it. I think we're taking the right approach there at this point, so thank you.
The only comment I want to make is, again, I was appreciative of the work that the executive team and you did. I know we talked about it at the last finance committee, and just our commitment to being conservative, given where we don't know exactly where we're going from an economic standpoint. But I do want to remind people that we do have the ability to, as revenues come back, we do have the opportunity to introduce a supplemental budget. So I feel really comfortable with the decisions that we made in hopes that that revenue does come back quicker than expected, and that we can introduce a supplemental budget to continue to do the good work of this organization.
Just to maybe echo a couple of things that I heard, David, I absolutely agree, and thank you to those of you who came in support of your colleagues today. That the base for the RCTP program, it's time to adjust to that, and I appreciate the request for added clarification on the process through which we can evaluate and make that even a predictable program. Jennifer reminded me today of that adage that courage favors the bold. What is that adage? Fortune. Say it. Fortune favors the bold. And in times like these, when courage is required, thank you for always getting me there, Kate. At times like these, when courage in the face of uncertainty is required, the decision to consider opening the large grants program is a really bold decision, and one that I support, and one that I encourage the members of the commission to support. The project as it was presented by PDX is fascinating, and we have seen what good work can come of our large grants program the one other time that we opened it in anticipation of the World Athletics Championships that were, of course, hosted in Eugene. So I'm grateful for the work that staff has put into preparing these budget recommendations, and I look forward to successful passage.
Commissioner Gremmels.
Yeah, again, thank you for the presentation. I echo Commissioner Pendleton's comments in support of increasing the base, and wanted to also appreciate and thank those DMOs for the presentations that were given to us, and the Port of Portland as well. And so also in support of increasing the large grants. And again, I really appreciate those DMOs showing us the difference of how they're operating and the opportunities that exist if we move forward with increasing that base of support. I just also wanted to comment, I've mentioned a few times publicly the word difference between, the meaning of difference between community and diversity. And I know that was a strategic change. However, I want to suggest that we move forward with bringing diversity under the values when in the subcategory of community, and say that and insert it in the first sentence of we honor the diversity of people, cultures, and places. So I also, again, really appreciate Oregon's DEI plan being highlighted in the objectives in this 10-year vision as well. So I wanted to comment and share my support of that. In the high-level structure of Travel Oregon and how it's organized, I wondered if there was a flexibility in that structure in this strategic plan, in the consideration of people and culture to further align with the state's chief human resources officer description, to further expand upon that for accountability, equity, excellence, and integrity within that people and culture role, and the possibility of moving that role in line with a vice president role within Travel Oregon. So a further comment for consideration as we adopt this iteration of the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Grummels. Any other comments?
Well, I just want to say I am in full support of the comments that David just made. David, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Todd, any comments in regards to that? I agree with Commissioner Grummels on his first comment of adding diversity in, and I appreciate his second comment. I don't know if that needs to be included in the strategic plan, so help me. Can you walk us through what that might look like?
Yeah, the first part, in terms of the narrative, the proposal to change some of the narrative in the plan would be a modification to what was presented. So you would adopt as amended, as recommended. The other is definitely a point of consideration for us and for me in my capacity at Travel Oregon, and certainly for the Commission's future consideration in terms of how they see the organization being structured. So doesn't impact the plan as it's currently laid out. Could be a budgetary impact if there's a change in the role from a director role to a VP role. That would be there would be a budget impact that would be taken into consideration at that time. But that doesn't necessarily drive a necessary change at this point.
Okay, wonderful. Then we'll I would recommend that we approve this plan as amended, and we will continue that conversation and appreciate it being brought forward perhaps at the September meeting.
And if I may, just for clarification, the plan is amended as you're referring to Commissioner Gremmel's comment about bringing diversity in, using diversity in describing the communities.
That is correct.
And the other portion is one that will warrant further consideration and the discussion will continue with the commission.
Thank you for that
Yeah.
clarification. I appreciate that. If there are no other comments or questions, I will take a motion for approval of modifying the 2023-25 budget as amended, adopting the 2025-27 strategic plan and budget as presented, and opening the large competitive grant cycle in fiscal year 26 as presented.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. I need a
Second.
second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The Travel Oregon 25-27 strategic plan and budget is approved, and the final plan will be posted to the commission section of the Travel Oregon industry website. In line with budget processes, the newly appointed budget will also be submitted to the Legislative Fiscal Office within 5 days. Thank you, Todd and team, for your work to align the biennial plan with the 10-year strategic vision and continue our objectives. I so appreciate your commitment to the vision and how that commitment guides our work moving forward. And I think you deserve a round of applause for working with that budget. So thank you to all of you. You made some really tough decisions, and I appreciate that. And with that said, we will take a much-deserved 10-minute break. So we'll be back in 10 minutes. be seated. Todd, I'm not ready. Okay, we are back. And the next item on the agenda is reports, updates, and discussions. Todd, I will turn this over to you now.
All right, Chair DeNovo, thank you so much. We have a few very timely reports, updates, and discussions to bring before you today. And the first one is going to be a collaborative one between Javier and Harry. Javier is our interim research manager. Harry, as you know from his presentation to you yesterday, is our director of regional-based services. And they're going to be sharing with us the results of our tourism industry partner survey that we affectionately refer to internally as TIPS, and also how it influences the regional cooperative tourism program plans that are brought forward by the RDMO. So Javier and Harry, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, commissioners. The Tourism Partner Survey and the corresponding statewide and regional reports are a fundamental part of how Travel Oregon and our regional destination management organization partners develop our respective two-year strategic plans. This is the 5th iteration of the Tourism Industry Partner Survey, and specifically, I think this cycle of the survey most succinctly shows the intended outcomes of developing partner and industry priorities and directly backing that up with programmatic investment from our RDMO partners. Today, Javier will provide an overview that highlights key statewide and regional trends and priorities contained within the Tourism Industry Partner Survey. And I will follow up Javier's presentation with how our RDMO partners are directly applying this body of research to direct regional programmatic investments for the upcoming 25-27 biennium. So through our collaborative approach today, you will get a clear example of a closed-loop system of how partner input and corresponding research leads to direct programmatic investment from our RDMO partners. With that, I'll hand it over to Javier to walk you through the tips.
Thanks, Harry. Good morning, everyone. It's my first time presenting to the commission, so I'm quite excited. It's kind of overdue, but hopefully you'll be seeing more of me moving forward. So as Harry said, Tourism Industry Partner Survey, this is, the way we do it is it's a digital survey, so we send out a link to our partners to have them access and respond to the survey. In our 2024 version, we collected over 1,300 responses from all 7 regions, with the coast respondents having the biggest presence. And all regions but the coast saw a slight increase in response rates. And just for comparison, the total number of responses collected in the previous version was 1,018, and in this case, in this year's version, it was 1,363. So in this first part of the survey, you will see some figures that might seem familiar. I mean, this first part of the presentation, some of the figures might seem familiar from Brian's presentation back in December, but I thought it was important to bring them back just for context and reminders of where we are at. All right, so first of all, our top 6 industry sectors by percentages. So this is self-identified sector by respondent. DMOs, lodging properties, food and beverage made up the top 3, while arts and culture, guides and outfitters, and attractions were all similarly represented to round out the top 6. The audience for this survey is broad. What we're trying to do is essentially get feedback from all jobs that interface in one way or another with our tourist or the industry itself. This question is asked with the goal of understanding the general satisfaction with the direction that tourism in Oregon is moving. So overall satisfaction is high, with 62% of respondents being either somewhat or very satisfied. For context, in our previous version of the study, 52% of respondents indicated they were somewhat or very satisfied. Now, that doesn't necessarily reflect a large increase in satisfaction. When we look at the average score for both years, they were not that different. 3.6 was the average score out of 5 for this year, and 3.4 in the previous version. However, it is a step in the right direction, and as we repeat this survey in the future, we will be able to monitor this metric. In terms of strategic planning questions, grants and tourism infrastructure remain the top 2 long-range planning priorities for the industry. We also saw strong interest in environmental sustainability areas like climate action and regenerative tourism. Using this data set, the Travel Oregon team developed a ranking criteria to ensure that long-term planning areas listed here were supported by Travel Oregon's work, especially in our biennial strategic plans. In some instances, Travel Oregon prioritized lower-ranking long-term planning areas because they aligned with our strategic vision. For instance, DEI-related areas rank low in priority for our industry in most regions, but the team opted to move forward with strategies in this realm since they support our strategic vision objective that Oregon is a place of equity. Another interesting thing about this particular question on this list is that marketing and promotion fell to the 5th spot, where it had historically been top 3 for previous versions of the survey. For this version, we did add options that were not there before, and these may have been seen as either higher priority or slightly overlapping with marketing. For example, enhancing perceptions for residents and tourism workforce would likely require marketing resources. We then present respondents with a list of areas and ask them to select which ones they believe are strengths and which ones are areas that need to be developed to improve visitor and resident experiences alike. On screen are what respondents identified as the top 3 strengths, being outdoor recreation, food and beverage, and agritourism. And the 3 biggest areas that need improvement being public infrastructure, marketing and promotion, and downtown development. Compared to the previous version of the survey, in terms of strength, food and beverage saw a small increase, while outdoor rec saw a small decrease. It is worth noting that we did add some options that were not available in previous versions, such as dark skies, and that may have some overlap with outdoor recreation. In terms of areas that need focus, in the 2023 edition, being a welcoming destination for visitors was the 2nd highest selected, and this year it saw a 7% fall, dropping to 6th place. The highest rise in terms of areas that need additional focus when compared to the 2023 edition was for downtown development, rising from 9% to 21%, an increase that was seen across all regions, but especially for the Portland region. Right, so let's jump into the region-wide results. So I'm going to be showing you priorities for each of the regions, similar to what we just did for statewide, but we will be going into each of the regions. And Harry will speak about how those priorities line up with the RDMO strategic plans and investments. You will see some similarities among the regions, but there's also broader themes shared. For example, Eastern Oregon and Southern Oregon have a bigger focus on investment and marketing, which I would interpret as destinations that see the potential to attract visitation, but that need support in their development. On the other hand, destinations like the Coast and Central Oregon have priorities that center more around visitor management. So let's start with Eastern Oregon. So as I said, this chart is similar to what I just showed you for the statewide, except here we're looking at the top 6 priorities by region. I also included the percentage of statewide respondents who also elected that priority, just for comparison. So what we're seeing here is the top 6 for Eastern Oregon, which are not necessarily the same top 6 that we saw for statewide. Statewide results will be either in blue or green, and I did choose this color depending on which color created more contrast to assist our colorblind audience. I see you, Commissioner Youngblood, who brought his Enchroma glasses to be able to see the regional colors represented accurately. Really good. There's some good contrast there. I see you, Commissioner Youngblood. However, I don't see color all that well, being colorblind myself, so I do apologize if there's anything that looks wonky. But anyways, on to the results. 47% of Eastern Oregon respondents identified grants and funding opportunities as a key priority area for the future of tourism development, quite a bit higher than the statewide response at 39%. Infrastructure was selected as a key priority at a slightly higher rate than statewide, and marketing was selected as the 3rd highest priority, again with a significant gap over statewide ranking. These top 3 selections are, as I said, in my interpretation, reflective of a destination that sees a lot of potential, but also recognizes the need to develop attraction and tourism infrastructure as well to attract more visitors. The next 2 priorities, enhancing perceptions for residents and bolster regenerative tourism, are well aligned with the statewide results. While the last priority on this top 6 list, support communities in crisis, does stand out as a slightly higher need than it is for statewide respondents. This slide is reflective of the areas for improvements that each region sees in order to improve the visitor and resident experience, as well as anything else that stood out from the results. In the case of Eastern Oregon, it is very well aligned with their top priorities for longer-term planning that we just reviewed. And then also Eastern Oregon was actually the only destination to select destination marketing as their top area of focus to improve visitor and resident experience, followed by downtown development and food and beverage. They currently do not view overcrowding as a big issue, and in general could use more visitors year-round. In terms of tourism development challenges, they view workforce shortages and wildfires as the biggest threats. Again, to me, all of this shows a destination that is seeing the opportunity to invest and develop further, with the goal of attracting both visitors, but also to have a stronger workforce, balancing both resident and visitor needs.
Yeah, so as Javier mentioned, for my portion of this component of the presentation, I'm going to showcase directly how our regional destination management organizations are responding to those priorities that are illustrated within the Tourism Partner Survey. Javier just talked about that destination marketing focus for Eastern Oregon, and to really meet that need, Eastern Oregon Visitors Association will be investing in social media marketing campaigns, guide distribution, fulfillment, and then looking at the international market with international development and trade show attendance at Go West and IPW. Additionally, they'll be running a regional grants program. Elena actually referenced that a little bit earlier. So the marketing focus might be a potential grant recipient as well.
Okay, so the next region we're going to be looking at is Central Oregon. And I really liked having Central Oregon right after Eastern Oregon, as the priorities for the two regions were very different. In fact, of these top 6, the two regions only have 3 in common. Central Oregon industry partners' top priority is sustainability and climate action. Close to half of Central Oregon respondents selected this option, compared to just over a quarter for statewide respondents. Other standout items in this top 6 are visitor management solutions and bolster regenerative tourism. These 3 are priorities that make sense for a destination that is looking to reduce the negative impacts of tourism in their popular attractions or cities. Central Oregon was also one of 2 destinations where work with underserved communities was ranked in their top 6. In the same vein as top priorities, focus areas to improve visitor and resident experiences are also aimed at decreasing tourism negative impacts and creating a more welcoming environment for diverse, multicultural travelers. It is no surprise then that Central Oregon respondents expressed the highest concern out of all regions regarding overcrowding, with 67% of respondents indicating that there were too many visitors during the summer months, as well as having the highest rate of respondents indicating that there were too many visitors throughout the whole year. Lastly, standout challenges for this region are affordable housing and wildfires.
Yeah, so to really meet that stewardship focus that Javier alluded to, Visit Central Oregon will be contributing to the Future Fund, which is their regional grants program that they work in tandem with other local DMOs. And they, of note, will be funding that above and beyond the 10% allocation that's recommended in the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program guidelines. So really sizable investment for potential creation of new tourism infrastructure and or assets. Additionally, they're looking to tap the Regional Strategic Investment Fund to directly fund new rural community partnerships. And that is kind of an outgrowth of the work that occurred via the Oregon Destination Management Studio. So really bringing those rural partners to the table in a really thoughtful and meaningful way. Direct investments into public lands. So Discover Your Forest and Deschutes Trail Coalition are local organizations that really foster outdoor experiences and direct stewardship to trail systems within Central Oregon. Additionally, speaking to some of the inclusion investments that they're making, the Travelability Conference will be hosted there this fall, and they are making significant contributions out of their budget to host that conference and really ensure its success.
The Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge region top 2 priorities, grants and funding opportunities, and tourism-related infrastructure are similar to statewide respondents at a similar rate of prioritization. This region also shares a similar level of priority for marketing and promotion as statewide responses. Where this region differs from the statewide response is in seeing the need to enhance perceptions for residents and workforce at a much higher rate than other regions. They also identify a strong need for visitor management solutions, which they have already experimented with in this region, such as the Multnomah Falls permit. Lastly, they also differ from statewide response with a higher prioritization for the support communities in crisis item. In terms of other standout items from the survey for this region, in order to improve visitor and resident experience, industry partners from this region believe there needs to be a focus on public infrastructure and signage or wayfinding, which aligns with the feeling of overcrowding that is higher than the statewide average for both summer and winter months. The respondents from this region also point towards the need for downtown development and destination marketing. My interpretation of this last bit is that there is a desire to continue bringing people in, despite overcrowding concerns, but that there should be an effort to divert folks from the more popular areas to other places in the Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge region.
Yeah, so for the Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge region, in really response to that desire for more public infrastructure, they will be tapping their strategic investment fund, which is similar to the regional grants process, and really taking year-to-year resource and combining it. So biennially, they're looking at making tourism infrastructure investments within the region. And the overcrowding concerns did come out loud and clear, and they are responding very well. Also out of that strategic investment fund, the commission has received many presentations on the trail ambassadors over the years. They'll be funding that work to continue. And, more in the marketing and distribution space, they will be funding the Infinity Loop map and the Waterfall Corridor map that really adequately responds to overcrowding concerns and how to really help navigate visitor traffic to ensure that what's being put out there via marketing materials is really in tune with what the region needs.
Okay, let's move on to the coast. The top priorities for the coast are similar to statewide, with the exception of having tourism-related infrastructure on top and grants and funding opportunities in second place. Enhancing perceptions for residents and workforce is the third priority, which I believe makes sense as the coast, specifically the central or north coast, had some of the highest negative resident sentiment scores according to our latest resident sentiment study. The bottom three priorities of this top six are likely related to reducing the impact of the high visitation that occurs during the summer season in the coast, which has been identified as a leading cause for the negative resident sentiment that exists in the region. In terms of areas to develop to improve the visitor and resident experience, coast respondents highlight public infrastructure, downtown development, and outdoor recreation opportunities. These focus areas are likely less aimed at reducing impact in specific areas and more at developing year-round attractions in potential destinations that currently don't see as high visitation, to help move folks from overcrowded destinations to less explored areas of the region. The main differences between the coast and both Central Oregon and Mount Hood regions, regions that face similar challenges, is that the overcrowding is much more heavily focused in the summer for the coast, while the rest of the year, respondents mostly identify that they would like to see more visitation. Lastly, in terms of challenges that may hamper development efforts, lack of affordable workforce housing stands out for this region.
So in response, the Oregon Coast Visitors Association will be looking from a public infrastructure standpoint, utilizing their strategic investment fund, focusing on signage and developing interpretive signage, but also with a lens toward developing more tribal tourism. So I'm sure the coast has reached out to you, Lucinda, in regards to this, but it's an exciting development to hear from them. On the overcrowding front, they're making direct investments out of their overall program into visitor destination management programs, so ambassador programs and strategic advisory groups. And then also notably, they will be continuing to invest in the North Coast Express, which is a visitor transportation bus shuttle that originates in the Portland region and transports visitors to the North Coast. Really cool project, and really excited to see it continue via OCFA's investments. Additionally, on the outdoor recreation front, Oregon Coast Visitor Association will also be making direct investments into expanding their mountain bike product and paddling and water trail development.
On to our fifth region. You will start seeing, as I said before, that there are similarities across the region, so I've been trying to focus more on what stands out. And in the case of Portland, there is a significantly higher focus on marketing and promotion, tourism-related infrastructure, sustainability and climate action, and working with underserved communities. Industry partners in Portland likely recognize a need to continue Portland's revitalization through marketing and improved infrastructure, while they also acknowledge that this needs to take environmental impact into account. I also want to see this development come hand in hand with becoming a more welcoming destination. Focus areas for improving resident and visitor experiences are well aligned with future priorities. One thing that stood out for Portland is this is the only region where food and beverage is perceived as a bigger strength than outdoor recreation. Portland industry partners would like to see increased visitation year-round and would also like to see improved visitor perceptions. Both of these items were identified at a significantly higher rate than for other regions.
Yeah, so in direct response to that visitor perception standpoint that Javier just presented, Travel Portland, on behalf of the Portland region, is making a sizable investment into PR work associated with increasing the perception of the destination Portland, in addition to doing media monitoring with a firm called Muckrack, which will help monitor and mitigate negative social media responses that are occurring in the Portland region. Additionally, the Portland region is looking to make direct investment out of their strategic investment fund and pool that with other grants processes that are pre-existing in the city of Portland to make direct investments to the central city.
So for Southern Oregon, I think it's very clear one item stands out quite a bit, and that is grants and funding opportunities. So as I said at the beginning, similar to Eastern Oregon, I interpret the top 3 priorities here as a destination identifying the potential that they would like to tap into, and also seeking more visitation. Southern Oregon industry partners also recognize that this development needs to happen in a sustainable manner and with regional partners involved. The focus areas identified align well with the future planning priorities I just showed and give some insights into how grants and funding could be used in Southern Oregon. Industry partners in Southern Oregon identify they would like to see more visitation year-round, and there is a strong desire for access to tool and training resources in the marketing space. Lastly, wildfires are seen as a major threat to tourism development.
Yeah, so to meet those priorities that Javier just illustrated, Travel Southern Oregon is really looking at some sizable investments from the region in communications and marketing, specifically PR and media relations, and then developing their own Travel Southern Oregon campaigns. From a public infrastructure standpoint, we've seen a lot of great work occur in the Dark Skies arena, and that work will continue. But there is also money set aside to just help sub-regionally more infrastructure support for the Southern Oregon region.
Okay, on to our last region. The Willamette Valley responses were actually very similar to the statewide averages, with the main difference being that enhancing tourism perceptions was rated a higher priority than sustainability and climate action, and that support communities in crisis came in as the 6th priority, just over bolster regenerative tourism. And their focus areas for improving, again, that resident and visitor experience include public infrastructure to support increased demand from tourists, outdoor recreation and marketing. Like for other regions, outdoor recreation continues to be the biggest strength, but food and beverage comes very close behind, with agritourism in 3rd place. In general, industry partners in this region do not consider there to be an over-visitation issue and would like to see more visitation year-round, but especially in the winter. And lastly, while perceived risks to tourism development exist, especially around housing costs, these are perceived less harshly than they are in other regions.
So I'm realizing that Stephen and Tori will be presenting short after this presentation about a broader overview of their regional plan for the upcoming biennium. But of those priorities that directly respond to those of those funding priorities, here is how Willamette Valley Visitor Association is responding. In regards to public infrastructure, directly tapping their strategic investment fund and doing more mountain bike trail development. From a food and beverage and outdoor recreation standpoint, continued work in the water trail space, outdoor rec map support, and supporting an agritourism survey. And then from increasing year-round visitation standpoint, the Willamette Valley has been running this program for a long time, but continuing it is an annual ornament hunt in which visitors are encouraged to go out in the woods in the middle of winter and go down to the Willamette Valley and kind of explore what it's like in the middle of winter. So good move there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Javier, Harry, thank you. Commissioners, questions or comments at this time?
Couple questions. The question about is the direction right, or one of the first question. So those who work at the DMOs, they know actually what's being done. But I'm wondering, those who work at line level at restaurants and hotels, do they really know what the direction is, or are they answering based on their perception? I mean, I don't know if there's an answer to it, but I was thinking about it, because sometimes they confuse that with their pay scale and work environment, and nothing to do with the real question you're asking.
Right. No, I totally see that. I think in general, when we do surveys that get at that kind of question, we are working with perceptions. And I do believe that if there is a big difference in the perception of people on the front line versus the DMO, then that could be a call to action in terms of communication, of increasing communication with that group. So I totally see what you mean, but yes, to respond to the first part of the question, this is a perception. And that's what we're looking for. We want to see how people perceive the way that tourism is moving in Oregon, regardless of their knowledge level, regardless of their position.
And next thing is about the print guide. How long are we going to keep it, or is it still worth printing them, the cost?
Well, I mean, I think you could ask Elena, but like absolutely, it's a vital investment for Eastern Oregon, and as visitor guides are developed, like the cost to actually produce the guide are very minimal in regards to all the sponsorships and everything that is included in the guide production. It's the distribution that costs money, and Travel Oregon has programs to help subsidize that cost as well. So I think it's a pretty efficient system, and I think it'd be a better question to ask stakeholders within the Eastern Oregon region. But yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments at this time? Commissioner Wallace.
Did I beat you? Sorry. Javier, thank you for presenting today. Harry, thanks for presenting. Javier, I think the very first slide showing satisfaction of tourism in Oregon, valuable. It was factual, it was upfront, and it was honest and transparent. It didn't take away there's some hard things to see there. People that are truly dissatisfied with tourism. I personally don't like to see that because I'm such a believer in this industry. But you could switch that around and highlight the positives only. And what you said of the reality that there's still opportunities for growth and work to be done. But we are moving in the right direction. We've seen uptick in those responses towards positive, and I appreciate those incremental gains and look forward to seeing this report in another year or 2 years and striving to see incremental gains again. Keep doing the work and getting this information for the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to commend you both in terms of how strategic you are through this. We do a survey, and then we take the dollars and we go back and we address, right, the challenges or the opportunities that we have. So thank you to you both for doing this work and making sure that we remain strategic in everything that we do. So thanks.
Yeah. If I could just add to that, I mean, that is reliant on the RDMOs also buying into that vision and carrying out the 10-year strategic vision. So kudos goes to them for really wanting to align and developing a really solid programming that does align with the direction we're headed.
Harry, thank you. I appreciate that follow-up.
Any other questions? questions or comments at this time?
Well, one common theme in a couple of regions were the overcrowding in summer region or summer season. Is that just because of the events they have, or the weather in those regions? And is there, because it doesn't impact all the regions, right? Obviously you have Central Oregon, you have the coast, and so how can they spread out that impact throughout the year?
Well, I think one way to do that, in a region that does experience a lot of summertime visitation, at least tactically via an investment, if you look at how the Mountain Gorge region is utilizing that infinity loop map system to really spread visitation out through the entirety of the region. So there might be individual hotspots within the region, but through education and marketing materials, like you can help visitation expand and disperse it, so it's not as bad in one specific hotspot. But yeah, I mean, the overcrowding concerns definitely correlate with just the actual visitation that's occurring. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of strategies over the years that RDMOs specifically have tapped into to help that, whether it be ambassadors or like what I just mentioned about Infinity Map.
Thank you. You got it.
Can I comment to Commissioner Hill's comment? I think I'm not going to represent the entire Southern Oregon coast, but I would say, yes, we could use more visitors in the summer. However, the strategies that are being applied, we can use visitation in winter as well. So I look at it from that perspective that, sure, we'd like a few more visitors down south, but the tactic that's being used for winter visitation is incredibly valuable to us as well. So.
Gentlemen, I would just thank you for the really thoughtful and constructive approach to today's presentation, as well as the process and what it portends for the entire industry. When we look to Vice Chair Willett's comment, Willett's or Willits's?
Willits.
Okay, thank you. S apostrophe comments. That kind of this pervasive negative confirmation, this negative bias that we seek. You look at a statistical spread of data, and you immediately look for the negative outliers. It's just kind of this unfortunate cultural phenomenon, and so to not sugarcoat what is negative in favor of what is positive, but to rather take the analytic approach that you all have. And then demonstrate empirically what's being done to address and to both reinforce positive outcomes, but also to cure negative circumstances is it's inspiring. And when you can cast too broad a net in terms of kind of prejudicial assumptions about tourism, our city goes from 20,000 people during the summer during the winter to 200,000 people during the summer. I mean, that's a talking point. It's probably factually wrong, but when you deal with these kind of prejudicial statements and kind of negative reinforcement, as every industry does, but then have the opportunity to really create substantive data that supports truth in terms of the actions that we're taking, the sophistication and intent with which good work is done, and real positive outcomes come from real financial investment. I can't be more grateful. And Javier, I swear I'm not trying to butter you up, but maybe if I'm lauding praise upon you, you could offer to help Greg with that mathematical formula that he was talking about earlier, because I'm afraid he's going to lose some personal productivity if he has to dwell on it too much himself. He's never done a pivot table.
We'll connect offline, Commissioner. And thank you, Commissioner Youngblood.
Just one comment is that everybody would like year-round business, would like visitors to come in slow season. and we have to try and do whatever we can, bring events, but the fact is, people want to travel when the weather's nice, when the schools are out, so that's one of the reality that the local community have to, we have to educate the community that there's not much we can do about that.
Any other comments or questions at this time?
Really not a question, but just kind of a question. When you guys are digesting the information that you get back from the surveys, do you ever, just for fun, shift out the destination management organization information and just look at those pieces remaining, and what does it do to the data?
I did think a lot about that actually. I'll give you an example from our resident sentiment study that we did last year as well. We purposefully targeted tourism workers to be able to also produce a workforce sentiment, which obviously could introduce a lot of bias. So what we did do was that we analyzed residents who were part of the workforce versus those who were not, and there are differences. When you are outside of the tourism industry, there tends to be a slightly more negative, or maybe more than more negative, it's less positive view of tourism, if that makes sense. So the negatives are similar, the positives are slightly less positive. And the same thing happens with this survey, where the DMOs workers might be slightly more positive than the rest. However, the survey doesn't just look at how satisfied people are with tourism. That's a very small part of the study. What we're really looking for are these priority areas, which I do think there should be a lot more alignment between a DMO, lodging sector, and so on. So yes, we do it, and it is very interesting to look at. But for this one, again, since we were focusing more on those priorities, I did not do that specific step.
And this last question, I'm just always curious, how do we get more people to play and fill out the survey?
That haunts my dreams. And I have thought a lot about it. I think coming from academia, we talk a lot about that. And, one easy way is incentives. Like some surveys will send you $1, whether with the paper survey, whether you responded or not, you get $1. It makes people feel guilty, they respond to the survey. So yeah, we can increase spend there, but that's not always effective, because also who is responding to that stimulus? Working closer with our partners. Harry mentioned at the beginning that this is a collaborative project, and I do want to take a second to shout out to all of the partners that helped us: Orla, DMOs, RDMOs, Chambers of Commerce. We would not be able to reach the industry if it wasn't for them. And they're all very engaged. Our DMOs help us design questions. They help us review the questionnaire before it goes out to make sure that we are all aligned. But yeah, working even closer with our partners, maybe augmenting their contact lists and the incentives. That's really what I have now. For our resident sentiment, we did also a lot of intentional outreach to more rural areas, but I think that is slightly different for this survey. But one thing we did, which was interesting, was we sent out postcards inviting. We targeted counties with under 20,000 or 32,000 people living in the county, or populations of 32,000, and we sent out postcards to randomly selected houses in those counties. And that was really effective for getting in front of people we usually don't hear from. So that could also be another approach to explore. We also leverage our welcome centers as well. Sorry, I'll just add that as well. They're extremely helpful in helping us get in front of more people. The difficulty here is really just making sure that we are reaching the industry and not people outside of the industry.
Thanks. I know it's hard. I'm not trying to minimize that it's difficult to get people to fill out a survey, but I don't lose sleep like you do, but I do think it's important.
David.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, great presentation, very informative. I actually agree with Jen in many ways. It would be nice to see a lot more. I think we've gone through the incentive piece before. I'm sorry, in different situations. I really would not like to see us go that direction just yet. Just work collaboratively with the other partners and see if we can find a better solution, because I don't think we really get the results. When we do that, that really help us to utilize that data and move forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think the incentive is a difficult one, and I think it works better for something like a visitor profile, where we are targeting the people broadly speaking, like travelers broadly speaking. But here, I think you're right, since it is a more specific group, it does become, I think it's also, I also agree that it's a better approach to utilize our partnerships. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any other questions or comments at this time. Javier, Harry, thank you. Harry, don't go anywhere. And Tori and colleagues, come on up. Commissioners, the next update that we want to provide you with is an update from our colleagues with the Willamette Valley Visitors Association. And so I'm going to, yeah, so not Tori, but Stephen and Tori.
I'm here too.
Yeah. So, all right. Harry, are you kicking off?
Yeah, I'm
Then I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Yeah, it's part of my on the podium residency here.
Yeah.
Well, hello, and thanks again, guys. So last year, you'll remember, we ran an RFP process to designate regional destination management organizations for Travel Oregon's Regional Cooperative Tourism Program. An RFP review committee comprised of Travel Oregon staff and commissioners presented their recommendations regarding designation at the June 2024 commission meeting in Medford. These designations are set to begin on July 1 for this upcoming biennium. Max designations were for 8 years, mirroring a term that encapsulates Travel Oregon's own 10-year strategic vision. At that time, a 1-year conditional designation was determined for the Willamette Valley Visitors Association of the following terms. A 1-year conditional contract contingent upon representing plan and staffing plan, and following that, an up to 7-year designation following commission review and an official midpoint review by the commission. So today, Tori Middlestat and Stephen Hoshaw of the Willamette Valley Visitors Association are here to present some key organizational updates and insights into their 25-27 RCTP program, or RCTP plan before their 1-year conditional designation begins on July 1st. So with that, I'll hand it to Tori and Stephen to work us through some updates.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Harry. Commissioners, good morning. Thank you so much for having us today. We really appreciate the opportunity to present a little bit on the transition year that we had last year, and then a lot more on kind of the strategic direction and vision that we have for the Willamette Valley over the coming years. Just over 1 year ago, the WAVA board embarked on a search to secure that next executive director for our organization. And during that time of transition, our board also stepped into a hands-on role to keep our organization operating smoothly alongside the fabulous staff and contractors that make up the Willamette Valley Visitors Association. In addition to ensuring that important marketing and development work that our RDMOs do continued, the team also accomplished some fantastic projects in this timeframe that I just wanted to briefly kind of note. We planned and hosted a sold-out Tourism Cares conference for the Willamette Valley, which we were really proud of and excited about. We designed and implemented a coordinated regional investment in global markets with our partners at Visit Central Oregon, Travel Southern Oregon, and Travel Oregon. Thank you. And we supported and grew trail accessibility assessments across the Willamette Valley. These were assessments that built on work that was happening over the prior years and will be continued to be built upon in years to come. While that was happening, simultaneously, our board also held a rigorous interview process, and we were thrilled that Tori Middlestat accepted this position upon the conclusion of that process near the end of the summer term. We had a little bit of a window at the end of that summer kind of term there into the beginning of November, which was Tori's official start date. That allowed her to kind of close things off and work on a succession plan for her position at Visit Grants Pass. It also allowed our board and our staff to really formalize a good onboarding plan so that Tori could hit the ground running when she joined the team, came back to Wallowa, I should say, in November. Thank you, yes, absolutely. In November, when she did arrive, she hit the ground running. She built on that planning work and led our board and our organization staff through long-term planning exercises and short-term planning exercises so that we could finish our fiscal year strong, build our staff team out, and continue to kind of build on all that planning work that we had been working on the whole year and prior. The outcome of those meetings and exercises was an updated long-term strategic plan and a staffing plan that you'll hear more about from Tori now. So I'll hand it over to our Executive Director, Tori Middlestad.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. I am really excited to be back at Willamette Valley Visitors Association. I was gone 3 years, which simultaneously felt like a blink of an eye, and also a lot changed in our industry and our community in those 3 years I was gone. So this has been a big listening year for me. It's getting back into community and saying, is this still true? What's going on? How are things going? How can we be helpful? And so I've been working to get out into community where our partners are, see how things are going, while also simultaneously looking at the internal side of our organization with December and January, after I started in November, doing board and staff retreats to really talk about a long-term plan. So our long-term strategic plan runs starting July 1 this year, 2025, through 2031, which might seem like a kind of weird timeline, except it allows that last biennium, should we secure the last 7 years of the 8-year run, to be the transitional planning year for the next long-term strategic plan and building on what that next biennium could be. So that's why the timing is how it is. Our key imperatives really focus on the key pillars of what an RDMO does. We have one that's focused on our industry services and support work, one that's destination development focused, one that's brand and marketing focused, and one that continues to look at a growing organization that has to continually improve and strengthen so that we can be the leader in the community we need to be and help our community strengthen as well. The other process that we went through is really defining regenerative tourism, equity, and inclusion. What do they mean to our board? What do they mean to our staff? And what are we hearing from our community in these terms? And that if we could define these terms and how we apply them into our region, that these could be used as tools to bring people into the community, especially when we look at some urban-rural divide and some sensitivities around a certain terms that are used on the slide, so that we can let people know they haven't missed the ship. We're here when you're ready. We're here to take you along. We're here to help raise your ship with our tide. So when we looked at regenerative tourism, it was really about focusing on the community-led need. When communities lead tourism, it decreases the negative impacts of tourism in their community, whether that's ecological, whether that's economical, whether that's cost of homes, or whatever that could be. If you are leading the tourism development, it will develop in the way your community wants instead of having it happen to you. And that we can view regenerative tourism from more than just climate, which is really important, and that a community that was once an extraction-based logging community but is transitioning to a main street with an outdoor economy and tourism economy as regenerative for that community. Equity is what fuels our understanding that our communities are unique and that with unique needs and viewpoints, and that we need to take that into consideration in the work we do. While inclusion is our active practice to look around who's at the table, who's missing, and who do we continue to invite into our processes. So digging a little deeper into the high-level imperatives of this plan, the first one is focused on our industry partners of elevate community, education, engagement, and advocacy. And so this is really looking at how do we continue the feedback loop, which you've all just heard about the tourism industry partner survey, tip survey, and how we integrate that to our work. How do we hopefully increase interactions in our community with that survey, increase those who take it? How do we develop our industry businesses to be more successful? How do we collect and analyze data, and then align our needs through advocacy? So then looking more at the destination development side, support community-focused led tourism development, we're really looking at project lists and identifying WAVA staff time in a lead, collaborate, and advocate sort of process. Having project lists and knowing what's going on in the region, knowing that sometimes regionally impactful projects we'll be leading, we'll be the driver, we will be the funder. It'll take a lot more capacity from our regional staff. Collaborate is we're sitting at the table, we're alongside with you, but it might be our local DMO partner leading the project, it might be a community group, but we're there consulting and helping. while advocate is, please keep us in the know. How can we help you? Can we provide a letter of support? We found this grant stream that might help you get this project done at a lower level capacity ask of our development staff as they work through the region. So collaborative regional brand awareness and marketing integration. I haven't said these words enough, so they stumble on them. Is our awareness and marketing work. The Willamette Valley is a premier world-class destination for wine, for outdoor recreation, for agritourism, for all the things that people come to Oregon for. We need to understand what the community needs and authentic voices are. We've been having this discussion all meeting today that the matrix of need is not, it's a matrix. It's not just a fine line. So in Eugene, for example, their summer visitation's pretty on lock and pretty full. Versus I have communities like Albany and Corvallis that are saying like, hey, every visitor you can send my way, I'll take them. And so knowing those needs and knowing those individual needs means that our marketing is also an arm of our management work. It's how we redistribute and how we highlight communities at the time that's best for them. We can also look at what our DMO marketing plans are, what our association partners are doing, like the Willamette Valley Wineries Association, Wine Board, and things like that, to figure out where and who's in market when. Can we expand representation of the Willamette Valley longer in market by timing our programs at different times? Can we do spends together, do bigger buys? And so working on that more collaborative approach to the marketing work that we do. And finally, strengthening our organization. This, although is the fourth imperative, is probably the most important. For us to lead our community, we need a solid organizational foundation. Stephen mentioned that we've been using this year to rebuild WAVA and think through and ask the question, does this still work? What's working in this program? Where can we improve? And how do we adapt this future WAVA to adjust in a way that we can be most impactful? So that's our long-term plan. These are our guiding lights for these multiple bienniums that hopefully when we secure the rest of our contract, we'll continue this work. So looking into 25 to 27, we have our balanced budget here showing how we're breaking up our budget by the different tactic categories with a small asterisk that year 2 is based on 2025 collections, so that could go up or down depending on how this year goes. Our regional grants is a strategic investment fund at 10% of our budget, and we allow our partners across the region to apply for. We had our first annual strategic investment fund this spring, and we allocated all of the money out within a few months, funding different sorts of programs. We allow the board to set priorities. This year's focus included marketing, some trail stewardship, an ADA sidewalk for a court that's used in senior games, things like that. Our plan was submitted to Harry and the team on June 2nd for its internal review, and so we can dig a little deeper into the high-level strategies by tactic. So when we look at destination stewardship, it does house our strategic investment fund. Harry already sort of mentioned how we're looking at water trail access. In particular, this work is happening along the Yamhill River, and it's connecting some of our smallest, most underserved communities in Yamhill County. Our accessibility trail evaluations that we have continued. It started as a project out of U of O to help create these evaluations. We've moved and done training with trail stewards organizations with partners like Trail Keepers of Oregon. As we look to the exciting project of Wheel of the World and being a first state verified destination, WAVA actually has 5 communities that have been evaluated as part of this process. And so from a destination development perspective, our welcoming destination education is really about how do we provide frontline training about working with those with accessibility needs, whether it's mobility devices, hearing impairments, vision impairments, neurodivergence, so that we can help our front lines, because we all know that although someone might shop and book their experiences on Wheel of the World, they are not only going to visit the Wheel of the World sites. So how do we spread that education out to other parts of the valley? Agritourism research support. Our OSU extension partner is looking at doing a visitor intercept survey at our agritourism sites. Their region doesn't totally align with our region, so we're hoping that our investment can spread representation and have it match the WAVA region so we can see from a whole how agritourism is doing and where we can improve. Brand stewardship. So international marketing. WAVA has historically and will continue to align with Travel Oregon on what the international support looks like. This year has been a wild journey for all of us as we figure out what the right role is. Probably initially in these first 2 years, it's probably going to be pretty inspirational. Come when you're ready. We're excited to have you back. In working in that space and then dialing into our target international markets if it is a time to turn on with a call to action that Travel Oregon's doing, supporting that as well. Domestic marketing is more of our booking funnel. Our key markets typically range from Seattle to LA along the I-5 corridor. We have also looking at the flights that support our regional airports. The California audience is really fueling into those airports at the moment. And looking at how are we pushing the needle more maybe in the domestic audience to try and backfill that gap of the international visitor that we're all feeling at the moment. Public relations. This is also our brand awareness. We have an always-on pitching campaign with our PR agency, hosting FAMs, trying to keep a regular cadence of FAMs and hosting FAMs at a year-round basis so people experience all the seasons of the Willamette Valley. And insights and impacts. So this is our investments when it comes to data collection and sharing. Full transparency, we haven't exactly decided what kind of data we're going to buy because we're still trying to figure out what are our DMOs purchasing so that we're filling the gap and not overlapping. If most of them all have Datafy, that's probably not the platform for us to buy. Do they need short-term rental data? Do they need Visa View? Or like what are the gaps that we can fill in with this investment? And so we're working on putting together a data committee to really figure out what that is. And our industry reporting. In our TIP survey, one of the things we also heard a lot of is how are we reporting out? The transparency of what we were doing was not necessarily making it to our stakeholders, and so really improving our industry web page, our industry newsletter, really making it clear and, on a regular reporting structure of what we're doing and making sure that's reaching our industry. And industry education in this category is a little more about how we're supporting the individual businesses, less on the frontline interaction of Google My Business, how to participate in global sales, running a business, how to apply for a grant, those sorts of education programs. And then staff and admin. We are in a little bit of a staffing change. Many of you know Jessie Fabrizio Stover. She's been our amazing destination development manager for a few years. We wish her well, but she is currently on her cross-country road trip to grad school at NYU, and we're super proud of her for her next steps. She also received a full ride scholarship to their program. So I know we have all felt her magic, and they're going to feel it there too. And we are actually in the final stages of hiring her replacement. And we currently have a marketing manager role available to apply for till June 16th. Push that out into the industry. If you have questions, you can email me. And so by July 1, we should have by early July into the early new fiscal year, we should have 4 full-time staff. And that includes a marketing coordinator who has been working part-time for us this year and transitioning her to full-time with the new fiscal year. We do have an office based in Salem, Oregon. And then also making sure that we are mapping out our staff trajectories, their improvement plans, and staff and career development. So we have funds set aside to, there's an international trails conference happening in this state. Let's go check it out. Let's see if there's more stuff we can bring back into Oregon to support what we're doing. So that's our regional cooperative. That's our lodging tax dollars. That's what supports the region. That includes Yamhill, Marion, Polk, Lynn, Lane, Benton, and parts of Clackamas County as far as that geographic region. Now the difference is as we move into our wine country region that we manage, Region 2 includes Clackamas, Lynn, Lane, Benton counties, while Marion, Polk, Yamhill counties are a part of Region 1, and that management is done by Travel Salem, who we work very closely with, so we're even having conversations of where do these regions align on any of their programming, and can we help each other, and then also address some of our own individual needs. There's a lot of strengths to this region. Part of these parts of the Willamette Valley are probably the lesser visited, lesser known areas of wine country. They represent a lot of really beautiful spots, a lot of culinary, a lot of agritourism. Some of the challenges we have is from a media outside of Oregon perspective, a lot of times the definition of the Willamette Valley kind of ends at mid-valley, but it does sweep the whole ecological definition of the Willamette River Basin, which includes Eugene and technically goes all the way to Portland, even though I don't manage or necessarily serve that region myself. And then from a consumer perspective, trying to build things like an itinerary that includes parts of Clackamas County and ignores a whole county in between to reach Lynn, Lane, and Benton is an interesting thing to navigate. So what we did is we listened to sort of the regional needs, and we did find needs that each one of these counties had, and we're going to let each county shine as addressing these needs. And they all kind of cited needing high-quality visuals, whether photo or video, and that they want itineraries that really highlight their region and their area specific, and that some of the wine-related holidays if you want to call them Wine Country Thanksgiving, Oregon Wine Month, are kind of underutilized in these areas. And these are areas that programs that we can partner on and push forward a little more. So for this budget, what we're looking at is doing a social media influencer program where each county gets their own influencer trip. And that influencer is going to be paid to also make some evergreen materials. Blog, we're going to pay for photo and video. Our local DMO is going to get a reel. WAVA's going to get a reel, so that we can have these programs extend and complement the programming that we're already done, but allow each region to shine and really highlight their unique wine and culinary assets. And so this year's allocation that we have available to program across the 2-year period is $92,160. So that's how it kind of lays out in that budget there. And then that's what I have I'm ready for questions.
All right. Well, Tori and Stephen, thank you. Harry, thanks for not moving on, for staying right there, but for your guidance on this program as well. But Tori and Stephen, I just want to personally thank you. It's been quite a year, I know, for you guys, and just appreciate your willingness to come and kind of give us, give the commission a sense of what this next year is going to look like as we begin this process. So with that, commissioners, I'll ask if there are any questions or comments at this time. David.
I'll start. Thank you for all the information you shared. You know, what a big loss for Grants Pass, that area down here. My God. But having you back up here, I'm truly excited as well.
I think you did.
You know, with everything that's happened this year, and you may not have an answer for this, but, you know, when you touched on the international piece and that impact of that Canada market, which we all talk about all the time, that could have been 70, 80,000 plus cases of wine that's impacting that distribution center. Has there been any, I mean...
Are you looking for data about what the impact is?
Well, a little data, but more or less the work that we're doing, is that helping to rebuild those relationships when that time is...
I think what we've seen is that land crossings have decreased more than air flights currently. The industry whose 1-2 punch is maybe even a little harder than our lodging partners is the wine industry. Their number one international audience was Canada. They watched all their bottles leave the shelves when the Canadian Alcohol Commission, or whatever their formal name is, took those off the shelves. And I don't have the numbers memorized, but April of 2024 was like a $40 million sort of export. And it was $2 million this April.
Yeah.
That's a huge impact. So we have, you know, when I actually 3 years ago left, I had several wine partners be like, you cannot talk about me for a moment. Like, my appointments are booked, we are full. And that, you know, smaller wineries who are lesser known that are like, you can still talk about us. Now what I'm hearing is, it doesn't matter who it is, the big names are not. They need more people in their tasting rooms. They need more people buying wine. And that international impact layered on to consumer shifts, consumer buying patterns, younger audiences consuming less alcohol. So there's a lot of parameters affecting it, but the Canadian one in particular is a major impact for that industry.
Okay. I just wanted to have you say a few words and call that out, because the fact deals with the impact that the wine industry has had to Oregon, tourism is just amazing. We probably wouldn't be where we're at today without it. So I just hope that we continue to do whatever we need to help support them as well. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Travel Oregon hearing that, and I know that they're supportive of the industry, and you know, how we're featuring that in that Always On campaign, how we're driving maybe domestic visitors to infill. You know, I think the wine board, the Wine Flies Free program is an important program to try and come back, and I know that the airlines have been a little harder to work with recently, and so that, you know, those programs that we need to reinvigorate and re-remind our audiences that they exist.
Thank you. Commissioner Willits.
Thank you for presenting today. Thanks for sitting at that table still, Harry. I think sitting on that RCTP review committee, we had knowledge that it was gonna fill with somebody spectacular. It has, but the time it took to catch up, explore everything, turn everything over, reevaluate, and come up with this presentation and new focus and new energy for that region is pretty special. Thank you, and thank you for putting a little flag up and saying, hey, let's see how it goes with the next manager and CEO, and thank you for stepping in and doing that, Tori.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll just thank you again, Tori and Stephen, for making the trip over and for making the presentation possible today.
I do want to do one little shout out for Harry and Kate and Stephanie and the RS2B team for how great they've been in helping us navigate this year and catch up and look forward. So I do want to shout out that too.
Thank you, Tori. Commissioners, our final update today, and I am cognizant of the time, but I also know you're cognizant of the importance of this presentation, is around the legislative session and a public affairs update. And our external and public affairs strategist, Kate Baumgartner, is going to be bringing this presentation to us just as quickly as her presentation shows up on her laptop.
There we go. Well.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Good morning. I know the end of a 3-hour meeting, what everyone wants to do is have an in-depth conversation about tax policy. So glad to be with you to give a legislative session update and talk a bit about another couple key public affairs initiatives we've had on our plate this spring. As a reminder, I'm Kate Baumgartner. I'm our public and external affairs strategist. So I'll ground our conversation in the way that I do a lot of these conversations, which is a clarification and understanding of Travel Oregon's role in the state policy process. And that's that we're a state agency, so therefore we're not taking positions on legislation. I'm not a lobbyist, and we're not politically organizing. So I don't sit in testimony in a committee meeting and say, we support this bill, we oppose this bill, and I'm also not calling all of our partners and telling them they need to take on a specific message. And that also means that as we're talking today, I'm not going to say that, a bill is good or bad, or we oppose it or support it, but I'll sort of be providing factual information, status updates, and then may share a bit about where we've seen our industry partners engage as well for your understanding, but not as a positional frame of reference. I will note that RDMOs are not required to follow those same constraints in terms of our role as a state agency, so you may be familiar that they're perhaps more active in certain elements in Salem than myself, Todd, or other members of the Travel Oregon team would be. But our role is that we're able to provide factual information, share our research and data, and answer questions from the legislature, as well as use tools to track policy processes and specific bills as well. So that can look like me joining the House Economic Development Committee to give our Travel Oregon 101 presentation that we did earlier this session, or answering one-off emails from specific legislators as they find our data and are trying to understand what Travel Stats dashboard looks like and provides to them as they're looking to answer questions. So certainly keeps me busy, and I'm engaged in Salem throughout that time, but it's not in a positional frame of reference. And then post-session, we'll continue to contribute to non-bill specific high-level conversations about tourism's value and impact across the state. We've had some good success doing that in specific legislative districts where we sit down with legislators and say, here's some great grant programs we've funded in your neck of the woods, or here's the role that these dollars are playing as an economic impact in your community. Not asking them to support any specific bill or take any specific stance, but help them understand how we're active in their neck of the woods. And then finally, I'll note that we may engage in rulemaking and implementation of specific policy post-legislative session as well, if a bill requires us to, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. So this is a very in-depth flowchart, and you don't need to try to squint and read all of it. But what I'll say is that the legislative session in Oregon in odd numbers years, so 2025 included, is from January to June. So by the state constitution, they're going to be required to adjourn by June 29th. They'd kind of put a marker out there saying they were going to target adjournment on the 18th. I'm not sure that that's happening, but what it means is in terms of where we are in the process, you can see that big red star as you are here. So for the most part, bills should have already passed out of their first chamber, the House or the Senate, been sent to the second committee or chamber, had committee hearings, been brought to the floor, and now are either kind of being brought for a vote and then signed by the governor, or being brought for a vote. And if it's different than the first iteration that was passed out of that initial legislative chamber, there's some work to do to bring those together and then pass a final version, or perhaps fail on a vote on the floor and, not live to see another day this session. The exception are bills that have been referred to the Revenue, Rules, or Ways and Means committees. And that becomes especially relevant as we talk about the transient lodging tax. So when I say that that's the exception, they're able to stay viable and those bills are able to exist in those committees, not subject to these specific deadlines and hurdles throughout the legislative process in the same timeline requirements. So as we talk about the transient lodging tax, I'll begin with bills focused on the statewide TLT. There are a number of bills that have been introduced on the statewide TLT this year, first being House Bill 2171, which provides an exemption from the state transient lodging tax for campgrounds that are a part of a county fairground and have fewer than 50 RV sites with full hookups. That bill has been amended in some work between the bill sponsor and Orla to say that rather than just simply exempting those properties, they could work with Travel Oregon to determine, are they a tourism facility? And if so, they could choose to either remit the tax to DOR as typical or reinvest those dollars in their specific properties, either in promotion or maintenance work. So should that bill pass, we take on an official rulemaking process. It's currently in the House Revenue Committee. It's not been acted on in recent weeks, but is technically still viable. House Bill 2977 is one that we've talked about in previous commission meetings. It's a bill that conservation groups have brought in previous years and brought again this year, and it would increase the statewide transient lodging tax to 2.5% and direct that new 1 point of revenue to ODF&W for non-game species habitat conservation. That bill is also still in revenue. The conservation groups certainly have been active in conversation about it. We've also seen industry groups from the lodging industry and from destination organizations talk about what increasing the rate does for overall competitiveness, especially as it relates to meeting and event business. We know that's certainly really relevant in Portland, but isn't relevant in a lot of our key markets across the state as well. So I haven't seen recent action on that bill in the last several weeks, but it is still viable, and we're aware that there are ongoing conversations as we look towards the end of June. And then finally, there are two bills that are identical. They just were introduced by different people, so there's two versions of them. And those are Senate Bill 358 and 434. Those bills would take the funds that's collected at state campgrounds along the coast, and instead of send those dollars to DOR and then on to Travel Oregon, they would put them into an ocean beach fund to fund recreation management along the ocean shore. Those bills were not brought up for a hearing before the legislative policy cutoff, so they are no longer viable. Next is local transient lodging tax. And we've seen throughout this course of legislative session, a couple legislators from the North Coast introduced kind of different iterations of bills focused on the local transient lodging tax. So that begun early in session with House Bill 3325, which was focused on allowing communities that had a certain ratio, a higher ratio of average visitors to residents to retain more of the transient lodging tax for community services. That bill was not brought up for a hearing before cutoff. And the legislators introduced another bill that was actually assigned to a different committee, House Bill 3556, which would expand the definition of sort of allowable use of tourism specific transient lodging tax dollars on the local level to be spent on either public safety or community infrastructure, things like wastewater services. That bill was brought up for a hearing, but was not brought up for a work session, so it died in committee before it was able to clear through that legislative hurdle. And so then those legislators introduced a third bill, which is House Bill 3962. That bill was assigned directly to the Revenue Committee, so it wasn't subject to that same cutoff requirement. And it's what is referred to as a study bill, and that kind of often act as a placeholder. So the text, just if you pull it up, it would just say, we'll study local taxation. And then there are amendments that have been proposed to look at altering that text later down the line. So there's a number of proposed amendments. The Revenue Committee discussed several of those last week, but did not choose to take any action on them thus far. Many of them look very similar to the text in House Bill 3556. There is one that was introduced by a legislator from Southern Oregon that instead of looking at a definitional change where, potentially if you're expanding the definition of public safety, 100% of transient lodging tax dollars could then go to public safety between what's available in a general fund and those tourism-specific dollars. So rather than doing that, a legislator introduced a bill to say, what if we kind of just look at some of the proportions instead and say, rather than post-2003 local transient lodging taxes being subject to 70% for tourism, 30% for general services, flip it and say 30% for tourism, 70% for general services. So there's a variety of conversations happening in that committee right now. Certainly we know that a number of partners have been at the table in those conversations, sharing their perspectives, and League of Cities and Association of Counties similarly have also been very active in those conversations. I'll continue to keep you posted as we see in these final 2.5 weeks if there's further action that comes out of those conversations. And then finally, I'll just note that there are 2 similar bills that were introduced on the Senate side, looking to sort of in that placeholder space, looking to study TLT funding public safety or looking to study the 70-30 split. Those are technically still viable because they were assigned to the Senate Revenue Committee when they were first introduced, but they were introduced in January and have not been acted on since. So the conversation's really been focused on the House side thus far. Another topic we've talked about a bit in previous commission meetings is recreation and some of the strain that Oregon is facing in our broader recreation economy due to a series of recent court rulings. On the fee for service, things like skiing and whitewater rafting side, we've seen that liability waivers have largely been nullified in recent years due to court rulings. And then on sort of the public land side, you know, the cities, counties, and others who are opening their lands up for free for people to recreate, we've seen some constraint on some of the immunity protections that they've been offered in the past. Court rulings indicating that if somebody's injured on an improved trail, things like a staircase or a bridge, there may not be that blanket immunity that has been understood and has been kind of the reason that cities have felt comfortable making those openings. So there have been bills introduced to really address both of those challenges. And on the public land side, Senate Bill 179 had some quick support throughout session and not a lot of opposition. So it actually has already been signed into law by Governor Kotek, which is encouraging to see that, you know, our public landowners are going to be able to keep their lands open, their trails open. That's especially been a conversation on the coast where there's trails that are an access point to broader recreation. And so there's been some concern there about, are they covered? And they are now with this additional step from that bill being signed into law. And then on the fee-for-service side, it's mid-June, so I wrote this whole presentation, and yesterday at 9 p.m. looked at my email and saw that this conversation's coming back. So we had seen that House Bill 3140 did die in the Judiciary Committee after it initially was heard in the Economic Development Committee on the House side. There is a similar placeholder bill on the Senate side that's just looked at studying recreation, and there's currently amendment language that I believe is going to be considered tomorrow to look somewhat similar to House Bill 3140, kind of based on those inherent risk fee-for-service activities, allowing some additional space for a liability waiver to come back in. So that is in the Senate Revenue and Finance Committee tomorrow. So I can certainly send an update your way as I continue to listen in on that and track it and see if there's any additional action that's planned. And then kind of my catch-all slide, what else do we know when it comes to the state legislative process right now? A number of topics that are, you know, connected to tourism in some way have also been considered or acted upon throughout this session. On the agritourism front, there was a bill really focused on rules around farm stands. And rather than pass a law, the legislature deferred policymaking there to the Department of Land and Conservation Development for some official rulemaking around farm stands. So I believe they'll be taking on a process to do that moving forward. There's a number of funding asks connected to tourism, or, you know, that would have a role to play for tourists visiting Portland specifically, that are moving along either in the Ways and Means Committee as kind of smaller asks that may be attached to a broader funding bill, or in the case of the baseball stadium, a specific bonding bill that would need to be passed. So the James Beard Public Market has asked for $10 million for their construction and build out from the state legislature. There's also been some requests on Tomahawk Waterfront Park and making sure that we're supporting our kind of key waterfront festivals, things like the Rose Garden, and making sure that that park is equipped to serve as an event venue and destination moving forward. And then finally, you may have seen that there's some conversation around how does Portland prepare to have, a competitive arena for a a competitive arena for a professional baseball team. And the conversation there has been, there's a bond that was passed decades ago at this point to allow that should professional baseball players come to Portland, their income taxes would be generating this bond funding rather than going into the general fund. The work this session has been to ask to increase that, to recognize both the increased cost of construction in the decades since that bonding measure was passed, and also allowing for the very large increases in salaries that baseball players are now seeing. So that's one that continues to be in conversation, and certainly happy to let you know if there's an end result of note there coming out at the end of June. There's also a bill in the Ways and Means Committee to fund a trade strategy between Travel Oregon, the Port of Portland, Business Oregon, and the Department of Agriculture. Those 4 agencies already work really well together as far as international trade goes and have some really important shared strategy work that we've done, but this bill would put some dollars behind that and allow Business Oregon to have some in-country representation in some of the key shared markets that we're active in, and then also fund some trade missions moving forward as well. So that's currently in the Ways and Means Committee where it's still viable. There's also a bill that would look at taking the Cultural Trust and the Arts Commission out from their current home underneath Business Oregon and joining them together as a new semi-independent state agency. So that's one we're certainly following, knowing the role of cultural and heritage tourism that we are aware of in Oregon. And then finally, I'll see that you likely have seen in just media coverage of the legislative session so far that 2 of the major initiatives and focal points have been: what is the process to fund wildfire prevention and fighting and restoration in Oregon? And then what is the process to fund some of the gaps in transportation of funding across the state? There's still a lot to come in the last several weeks of session to clarify what those funding packages will look like and the support for them. So we expect that to take up a lot of space in the final several weeks of session. And certainly happy to let you know what the outcomes are there. I'm not aware of, specific, really clear tourism nexuses, but we know that our industry is certainly affected by wildfire, and certainly people got to drive on roads. So happy to keep you posted as we hear more there. To shift to the federal focus, this spring was also our annual Destination Capitol Hill, which is the annual advocacy fly-in organized by U.S. Travel. This year, our delegation included Tori and Elena, so today's like a reunion, as well as several of our commissioners and then staff from Travel Portland, the Port of Portland, and Explore Tualatin Valley as well. And we were able to have really productive meetings with our congressmen and senators, or congressmen, women, and senators, and the U.S. travel policy agenda that they put together really influenced that conversation. And we brought a few key focus points of our own as well. So U.S. travel was focused on how are we preparing the United States to host what they're referring to as a mega decade of events. So things like the World Cup, both the Winter and Summer Olympics, the Ryder Cup, and others. And a number of their items to really make sure that we're ready to showcase the world and showcase the U.S. to the world in that way are reducing visa and custom wait times, modernizing air traffic control, fully funding the Undersecretary for Travel and Tourism, and supporting national parks through the reauthorization of the Great American Outdoors Act, also known as the America the Beautiful Act. And then we brought to our conversations a focus on Canada, so appreciate how Commissioner Pendleton and Tori were able to give some status updates on that in this previous conversation, and then conversations around public land staffing more broadly in addition to that reauthorization discussion. So really productive conversations, really appreciated the engagement of our congressional delegation. And one, I think especially encouraging outcome from those conversations was this letter that Senator Wyden sent to the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State just a couple weeks after our meetings, really underscoring that the U.S. is stepping into this moment with the World Cup, with the Olympics and others, and we need to make sure that we're aware of travelers' rights and ready to meet the moment. And some of the things that were surfaced in his letter were not specific talking points of our conversation, but absolutely understanding that he sees, the really global stage that we're on and need to be prepared for. And then some of the really specific language that he included about visa wait times was a really great outcome to see, and certainly really appreciate our ongoing relationship with his team. And then finally, as we talk about spring with U.S. Travel, there's also their annual event, which is their National Travel and Tourism Week. And that's really an effort to celebrate travel's essential role in driving our nation's economy, cultivating vibrant communities, and forging connections. So we see clear alignment to our priority to advance the perception of tourism value and increase advocacy among policymakers, residents, and the workforce. So as with previous years, we undertook a media push on our economic impact report release in the upper right corner. That's some of the great coverage we got from Portland Business Journal in those conversations. And then we worked with a number of RDMOs to do some of that workforce engagement as well. So Lizzie and I spent some great time in Sandy doing the Hood Gorge's annual thank you project, where they're engaging with their workforce and saying thank you and giving them some messaging on the really critical role that they play as frontline members of the tourism economy. Visit Central Oregon took on a similar effort, and then the Oregon Coast Visitors Association hosted a number of screenings for a film that they just finished with the Travel Oregon grant, where they were able to bring in community members in Coos Bay, Lincoln City, and Seaside. So there's Erica and Petra kind of getting ready to screen that video in Seaside, and just thank everyone for the really clear role that they play in driving their community. So really appreciate everyone's engagement in that and the clear alignment to the vision. We were also able to get some of that thank you exercise out to our frontline staff at the Oregon Welcome Centers as well, and make sure they're understanding their role. So it's been a busy spring. There's a lot going on, and with that, I'm happy to answer questions if folks have them.
Thank you. Thorough, as always. Commissioners, questions or comments for Kate? Mr. Willow.
Just a big thank you. A lot going on, and that list that you presented today is down from a list 4 times that size when we started this session. You've tracked it all, and you've kept the commission informed on what's happening and who to call and like where we can assist in things in this process. And then for your efforts in DC, it was an organized for everybody in this room. We're in DC. I'm certainly nervous. I'm surrounded by other nervous people as well. But it's organized so that you know who you're meeting with, what you're saying, you know, what your ask is, and it's from the heart for our state especially. And we have a great delegation there representing our state and all the good work we're trying to do in this industry. And Kate is the organizer of all of us when we're there. So thank you, Kate, for that.
Thanks. It was my pleasure.
Any other comments? Or Commissioner Youngblood?
If I could, Kate, I would just like to add a note of thanks, similar to what Vice Chair Willits just said. I can't imagine surviving any session, let alone a long session as dynamic as 2025 has been, without your attention and guidance and stewardship for all of us. Thank you for taking the time to go through the primer at the beginning of your presentation to remind us of our lane, for lack of a better term, as a state agency, and the rules by which we and all state agencies should, if not need to, play in terms of policy advocacy. And so just thank you. Forgive me, because this is just a question on political colloquial language. What is a gut and stuff bill? What does that refer to?
Yeah, so not language that I used in this presentation, I will note. Thank you, Commissioner. But a gut and stuff bill tends to be, there's some sort of placeholder, typically a study bill, and then stuff gets put in there by an amendment process throughout the time. So sometimes that's because there's a bill in the Revenue Committee or in Ways and Means or Rules that, you know, is still viable, whereas the previous effort was not able to pass those deadlines, and so there's language that's amended there. Sometimes it's just people get more information and make more considerations further on into session, and so there are things that come in later. But that tends to be how folks use those in conversation. Yeah.
As always, I appreciate the education. Thank you, and thank you again for your whole presentation.
Yeah, thanks.
David.
Kate, I didn't want to be the first to go. But, you know, I know this is not your first rodeo coming to Travel Oregon. And we're very fortunate to have someone like you with the experience and what you bring to the team. I do want to make one comment on the DC the trip to Capitol Hill. I hope as we continue to move forward, I know this has been said by many commissioners before, that we continue to get new commissioners that come on to experience that, because you really get a chance to see the work that you do. And also, I will give Todd some credit too, a lot actually, for the work that he's done over the years in that space as well. It's just been incredible. So thank you to both of you.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate that.
Thank you for the presentation. You'd mentioned that I think the cities on the North Coast have been very active in using some of the TLT funds for public safety. I think when I look at the statistics, I think that for example, the Oregon coast overall occupancy last year was about 58%, which is actually down, I think 0.5% from prior year. Has there been any comment as to, I think we've heard chatter that there's so much visitation from the North Coast, and as I just communicated, we're at 58%. Has there been any comment in regards to that from the North Coast or from the League of Oregon Cities?
Yeah, appreciate that question, Commissioner Novo. I have not seen city officials from the North Coast specifically speak to that. I will say there's certainly been use of our occupancy data that's been brought into those conversations to underscore, a leveling off that's happening on the North Coast, and then the broader conversation around seasonality and what does occupancy actually look like in the winter. I know that there are industry partners who make the joke that the Oregon coast experiences a recession every year. It's called winter, right? So that has been certainly brought into those conversations. I will say during an informational meeting on House Bill 3962 last week, the city manager for the city of Bend did attend, and he had a graph on their local transient lodging tax revenue, and he did call out a leveling off that they've seen in recent years, and how that was something to continue to monitor and take note of. There have been city managers that have brought that up, but I have not seen Coastal Voices specifically, although we'll underscore that Mayor Benetti certainly has been active and has really brought a clear, I think, hospitality and city leadership background to his conversation, and he's been pretty clear about his concerns about House Bill 3962 in public testimony. So Coos Bay is at the table in a meaningful way in those conversations.
I think Mayor Benetti's words, and I hope I get this right, to use these dollars for public safety, if I remember him saying this, there's no way that you're ever going to have enough dollars to do that. Mm-hmm. And the real conversation, I believe he said before, is we really need to tackle PERS and to use a stable funding and to try to take some of those dollars for public safety would be a travesty to the industry. So I appreciate his leadership in that space and all the work that he's done. I also would like to thank you for all the work in this space, as well as Orla and ODA for all of their work, making sure that they represent the industry. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some great partners.
Not seeing any others. Kate, thank you very much. Well
Appreciate
done.
it, guys.
Well, we have reached the end of our agenda today, but before we adjourn, I would like to share my appreciation to Elena and to Jennifer and to all of those who just provided such amazing hospitality in this part of the state. Thank you so much. You've heard many of the commissioners say it was a really special time here, so thank you. Are there any, before I adjourn the meeting, are there any additional business or announcements from the commissioners today? Okay. With that said, our next meeting will be held September 11th and 12th in Yachats. More information will be posted to the industry website as soon as it's available. I would like, again, to congratulate Vice Chair Willits and Commissioner Patel for their new roles of leadership. I have had the great privilege of spending a lot of time with Vice Chair Willits over the course of these last 2 years, and I just could not be happier for you to take the helm of this agency. I also appreciate that this commission, while there is a vice chair and a chair, we've all worked collaboratively, collectively to come to all the decisions made. So I'm very proud of that work as well. And I wish everyone a safe travels home. And with that said, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.